It's going to be a hot one.
Electricity 101 today, I think.
Yes. Tesla, Nikola Tesla. This man, in my opinion, has not gotten his due.
I think we need to give him his due by saying that his technology, his inventions might have put us through the paces more than anybody we've done so far. And I thought that Newton was going to be tippity top.
Leonardo, Newton. I think the biggest thing with those guys is their stuff was a lot of stuff that was crazy to figure out, but it didn't have as much of a real world impact. Like, you can understand physics, you can talk about the formulas that measure physics. Swinging a hammer is still taking the same amount of muscle to swing a hammer or whatever. Leonardo, painting, the human anatomy type stuff, all of that he did, his stuff was almost like stuff of leisure a little bit, or just cool shit to see.
Mm-hmm.
Tesla.
You could see it. I think that's the most important thing. And even Karl Marx and the internal combustion engine.
Yes.
You can see an engine running.
Daimler-Benz that created a different way to do it. Henry Ford, like we talked about, to figure out the mass production of the vehicles. All tangible, usable things that have an impact actually on our lives. And we have definitely 100% not covered a person that has had an effect on our lives, or anyone's, I think, for that matter, more than Nikola Tesla. The entire podcast would not be feasible without this man.
Yeah, I mean, technically we're running on a laptop that's run, I think, by DC power. But it has to be charged by AC power.
Exactly.
Son of a gun. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a fun one. We put a lot of effort into trying to understand just a few things that this guy did. There's going to be some things that we can explain. There's going to be some things that we have to punt on just because it truly takes a very intelligent mind to be able to understand this, to be able to disseminate it.
It's hard enough for somebody that's not under the effects of things.
Yeah, we're veterans in this game of trying to do this, I think, by now after, 4 years? But it even, I guess, 3 years, maybe 4. No, three, almost 4.
It starts to blend together.
Yeah, I'm having trouble with dates, and we're going to have to try to explain a DC and an AC motor.
What is electricity?
Yeah, just a wildly interesting man that pops in and out of history in so many different ways. The fact that this guy worked for Thomas Edison, and they had such a competition that I think may have been less personal, as it just is a better story to tell as a competition. It's fascinating to know that Edison is Edison and Tesla is Tesla, as far as we know them.
And as far as so Edison has the name recognition.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's because there was Edison Electric. There were certain things that were actually tied to him.
Edison bulbs.
Yes. Tesla was responsible for so many things, but very few. The stuff that is usable is not tied to the Tesla name. When we think of Tesla, it's the fucking cars now, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. But a Tesla coil, aside from just looking fucking cool and being able to do stuff at a Discovery Center or whatever, there's not a practical use for a Tesla coil. But if you were to say...
in our daily lives.
Correct.
Science, yes.
Yes. But if you were to say, instead of calling it AC power, you were to call it Tesla power, everyone would know very clearly that Tesla was a more recognized name than Edison.
Yeah, there's so many things. I mean, Edison with a telephone or a gramophone.
Well, it was telegraph, I think, is
but he had the gramophone before the record player.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he put his name onto things, whereas Tesla was like, I invented it. I'm going to sell it off to somebody. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to worry about it. Yeah. I'm not a manufacturing guy. I'm an invention guy.
Yeah.
Whereas Edison's like, I'm going to invent. I'm going to steal some shit for some other people, get in on some patents that maybe I didn't have a part of.
And then I'm going to be a businessman. Yeah, I'm going to run the board of directors.
I'm going to put my name on it. Yeah. Exactly.
All right, guys. Well, I'm Chris. That's Adam. Mm-hmm. Welcome to the podcast. If you guys are just joining us, for those old heads that have been with us for a long time, welcome back. The Wrapped this year was, I don't even know how to put it. Seeing the growth that the podcast had, all of the love that's been coming out for you guys posting on your stories on social and everything like that. Just getting some comments. I Googled just to do the Google AI thing. I was like, tell me about the Historically High podcast. Took me to a link where I was able to read some comments, stuff about, because I've had podcasts that have got me through some like rough times and patches and everything, but to hear that from certain people is just like, oh shit, like it gives us renewed motivation to do this. And for those weeks that it's hard to study, because we've been doing this for a long time, it really provides that motivation to keep it going.
It does, and it's kind of an interesting thing, and I think your mind works very much the same. We're not businessmen. The back end of the podcast isn't exactly as taken care of, as far as I think we're both pretty singly focused on trying to make as good a product as possible.
Yeah.
And so it's nice to kind of take a back seat to putting the pressure of being like, I need to know this, to being able to look at it and be like, okay, well, all the effort that we put in to try to make this as good of a product as possible is something that people enjoy.
And it's only going to get better in the future. All right. Well, now that that's out of the way, wherever you listen to your podcast, go ahead and rate us as high as you can. Keep the comments coming. Keep the recommendations coming, because even if it's niche stuff, maybe there's going to be a way that stuff's going to start getting fit in the future. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah, it's some stuff just pops in, some stuff pops out. It's the way that history works. It's such a big web of interconnection that even if we don't necessarily touch a suggestion, I can guarantee you we're going to walk our way into that suggestion by doing another topic that will then be able to explain it better for us to look at and be like, that's why that suggestion's awesome.
Yeah.
That's why we need to do this too, because we just talked about it being an integral part of another story.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, without beating the bush or beating around the bush any further, beating the bush, beating around the bush, however you want to put it.
Beat the pigeon.
Let's get into the godfather of electricity, Nikola Tesla. All right. Where was young Nikola born? I don't know why I did an Irish accent or a Scottish accent with that.
I don't. Is this going to be an accent episode?
No.
Okay, because there's a lot of accent in this. There's a lot of words that really aren't easy to say. Nikola Tesla, easy to say, born July 10th, 1856 to Milutin and Georgina in Smiljan, which is present-day Croatia. It was kind of like an outer battlefield, kind of like frontier town. I want to say that it had like 400 people in it then, and it has like 400 people in it now.
Yeah. At that time, it was part of the Austrian Empire, I believe.
Very, very small. He was born to an ethnic Serbian family. He was the fourth of 5 children, so they had a pretty good run. I didn't really, maybe it's the Greek Orthodox part that's coming up, but cool little side note, his paternal grandfather fought for Napoleon.
Yeah.
Didn't even put those two together that would be happening, that he would be a Nikola Tesla's grandfather would be a Napoleonic soldier.
It's weird to think about that because of the connection in history. At the same time, can you imagine you just are hanging out with your friends? You're like, did you know my uncle fought for Napoleon? He's like, everyone's fucking uncle fought for Napoleon, dude.
Back then, not that weird, I guess.
Exactly.
His father, who tried to follow in Nikola's grandfather's footsteps into the army, just really couldn't hack it. He was just a different breed from his father. He ends up becoming a Greek Orthodox priest. We talked about this a few different times. Greek Orthodoxy is the split that happened during the Byzantine Empire as far as Catholicism and then Greek Orthodox.
What? A religion split? No.
Yeah, no kidding. But I guess that allowed him to marry because he got married and he pumped out 5 kids. His mom was a very, very clever woman, and she was very just around the house. She was always coming up with better ways to clean something by coming up with something more efficient.
Yeah, she was like a tinkerer, basically. She made homemade tools. She was able to construct mechanical appliances, which to me, a mechanical appliance at that time, looking into it, had to have been basically, the old school mixer where you just held it and
something
you cranked
run by
it.
crank.
Yeah, yep. Something that went by crank or something that allowed her to crush wheat easier or something like that.
Better butter churn.
Yeah, exactly. Nikola credits her for a lot of his talents regarding his, I always mispronounce this, is it it's the one that starts with E and then it's memory. Eidetic? Eidetic? It's the memory that allows someone to recall something, I think, very, very easily. So he gives her credit essentially for a lot of his ability to visualize, or just pretty much his talent for invention.
Well, both of his parents had just extraordinary memories. His mom was always very good at this stuff. One of the very eloquent things that he writes in his autobiography about his mother is that even at an older age, she still had the dexterity in her fingers to tie 3 knots in a hair.
Eyelash.
In an eyelash, that's what it was.
Well, and he also notes that I think he was writing something about just women in general. And he basically said, I can look back as an example to my mother, who I feel her only restriction to being more successful was the time and kind of the culture in which she was in. Had she been afforded the same opportunities of everyone else, I think she would have surpassed, beyond her wildest dreams or whatever it was. He then said, something along the lines of, I believe that once women are afforded the same type of opportunities that everybody else is, we're going to see like a lot more innovation and everything because they're capable of the exact same things.
Yeah, he later on in his life, he gets a little bit weird about the role of females in society, but we're going to stick mostly on the good stuff. Yeah. He makes some wild claims.
He developed this thing called synesthesia, which is, and this is crazy. So
have you never heard of this before?
I hadn't.
Yeah,
someone described it to me, but then I thought of it just as a sensation, maybe that you get sometimes. But synesthesia is where, as I understand it, one sense will trigger another sense. In the sense of, I see the color orange and I get a certain taste in my mouth or something like that. I am someone that they always say this with musicians a lot, that musicians are able to see sounds.
It's basically like a mental entanglement of senses.
Your wires get crossed in your senses, and so something that's only supposed to be triggering your sight also triggers your sound senses as well.
Pick up a smell, all of a sudden you see blue. His dad was looked at, avid reader, which is kind of funny with some of the things that he throws at Nikola later on. Tesla was quoted talking to, or that his dad used to say, if anybody were to ever burn all the classics, I could recite them by memory.
Yeah, like big into epic poems, things like that.
Just an avid reader and somebody who was very good at what they did. And, I mean, if you're a priest and you're memorizing...
Probably hyped. You'd probably be able to quote certain stuff better than others, yeah.
Pretty easily. 1861, Nikola attends primary school in Smiljan. He learns, this is wild to me, just because I don't know, maybe I don't know exactly where Croatia is in relation. Classes are all taught in German, and he learns German, arithmetic, and religion all in this kind of beginning primary school.
Austrian Empire, German, something like that?
Possibly, but he also goes on to, he speaks 7 different languages,
yeah,
I believe. It's a lot of crazy learning to be able to pull out.
Honestly, when you say that, it's one of the least impressive things, honestly.
To me, it's, what accent do you speak in? Like, are you always going to speak in a native Serb, Croat accent? Because that's your initial language? Because you're learning so many different languages, your tongue has been able to
But
form
everything
and move.
you're learning is probably flavored with that accent.
Yeah.
You know how when someone comes down, you can always tell an American speaking Spanish? Or an English speaker speak. I think everything has a certain...
I didn't know if it was a ladder effect, like he's a Serbian man who last learned German, and so his English is tainted by a German accent.
I think there is a difference between someone being fluent in a language and someone being able to speak that language as if someone is a natural born speaker of that.
Yeah. 1862, the family relocates because of his father's job as a parish priest to a place called Gospic. Now he goes from a 400, 500 person town to Gospic that's right around probably between like 8 and 11,000 at that time. So there's just this massive upswing. Nikola would stay in Gospic for his primary and middle school to finish all that stuff up. His youth was filled with all of these kind of crazy small inventions that he says in his autobiography, the first thing that he remembers inventing, which this definitely wasn't it. He said that one of the boys in town was given a hook, a fishing hook, and somehow that was a pretty big deal for one of the kids to get a hold of a fishing hook. And they would go down to the creek and they would catch frogs with the fishing hook. Well, this guy didn't invite Tesla to go on this frog catching mission. So Tesla said that he found a piece of steel that he could smash in between two rocks and to form it into his own hook. He talks about how the boys all came back because they weren't able to figure out how to catch the frogs with that hook. Mm-hmm. And he just had like a line of frogs in front of him because he had figured out a way to make a hook and then use the hook in front of a frog to get him to try to bite at the hook. So he said that he instantly became popular with all the boys once this happened because it's not just having the toys, it's being able to institute them and use them.
Yeah.
He creates a cap gun, basically. I guess it's like a pop gun, more likely, just out of random things around his house that he's very proud of. Just hearing him talk about this stuff as an adult, you can kind of tell like he's got this moment where he's just like, you can't tell me shit.
Yeah, I think there's a pride in regardless of what it is, in his own accomplishment. Yeah.
Yeah. And his childhood not only was filled with kind of these big learning moments, he also had big emotional moments. His brother, Donne, which is hilarious because I spelled it completely wrong before I finally saw it, just hearing it. Mm-hmm. It's just Dane.
Yeah.
Donne just sounds better. Dane was 12 years old.
So you just said Dane.
Fuck. Donne. Donne sounds better. Donne was 12. I believe Tesla was between 8 and 9 when this happened. Mm-hmm. Donne jumped on this horse that the family had. They had loved the horse. It was a horse that had actually saved his father one time. Real good feelings about the horse, but the big problem with the horse was that it spooked easily. And
I feel like that's a pretty major thing about a horse.
Don't want him to spook.
There's a lot of stuff that just pops out of fucking nowhere. Like the horse is fantastic. It's great. Unless anything startles it.
I can't imagine saddle technology in the 1860s was solid.
No. And here's something, and this is completely off topic, but horses are fucking tall.
Yeah.
And so, you know, this is so bad to say. When I heard Christopher Reeve fell off a horse playing polo and he got paralyzed, for the longest time I was like, that had to have been the craziest, most off, you know, what are the odds
that
would occur? What that would, no, not only that, but it would occur by falling off a horse. Like, I fall off the jungle gym. Like, how did that end up happening? Yeah, horses go fast, and then at the same time, yes, he's Superman. But
high rate of speed, Superman falls on his neck. Not a whole lot he can do after that.
It's when you're on a horse, you're like up at 5 feet just on the back of the horse. So you're up and falling from even higher than that. And you're a 12-year-old kid and you get spooked and the horse rears back and throws you off. You're a kid falling back onto his head from 8 feet up.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, his brother dies.
Unfortunately, Donne dies. Even sadder, I think, was the fact that Nikola witnessed it. Mm-hmm. He was actually there to see it. He said just beautiful things about his brother Donne. Anything that he had done, Donne was somebody who had already thought of it first. He was very ingenious in the things that he would come up with. He basically paints Donne, and I don't know if this is just a brother-to-brother thing, as a man that was much wiser than Tesla, which after we get done with this episode, you're going to be like, shit, what would have happened if he would have stayed alive?
I just want to let it be. But the fucking critique in me is it's his brother.
Yeah.
Regardless of how great he is, he's always going to imagine the potential of his brother as how much more potential he had when he was 8 and his brother was 12. I don't see how it's tragic. I'm not saying it's not, but I feel like that's just the natural thing to say, is just that if you think I was great, you should have seen Donne. Donne would have surpassed me in all these ways. Donne would not have surpassed Nikola in this stuff. But I also don't know if Nikola Tesla becomes Nikola Tesla unless this happens.
Yeah, he needed an incident. And
it's like a goddamn superhero origin story. Someone's got to fucking die.
And it had to be his brother. Uh-huh. It had to be Bruce Wayne's parents, and it had to be Nikola Tesla's brother.
It's got to be the parents, or it's got to be a sibling in a tragic horse accident.
The death of Donne just shook his family up. He talked about how, regardless of what he did after Donne died, that his parents just wouldn't even really recognize it. They were just so wrapped up in grief that no matter what he did, it just wouldn't change his standing with them. And I understand that. I mean, you lose a kid in a tragic horse accident, it's going to shake you up for a while. Especially, it sounds like it might have been a favorite kid.
Yeah, I mean, it's if it's
your
the
oldest
first
boy.
Yeah, it's got to be something like that. And at the same time, I mean, you're in the Austrian Empire. Mortality rates for kids probably aren't that great.
Yeah.
A horse accident with a kid, that's probably happened to the family 3 houses down or something like that at the same time. It's horrible. And I think seeing that, because at this point, this is kind of when he goes in to describe these episodes he would have, what he describes as hallucinations. I think this is just a mental break for a kid witnessing that.
It's PTSD.
Yeah, it's the death of the person that you idolize most. And so Tesla goes on to explain that he would experience from kind of that point going forward these intense hallucinations that at first were kind of like just replaying this moment in his head. I don't think those are hallucinations. I just think somebody who is born with the kind of brain that allows them to really have a vivid imagination, visualize things in their head, and has a brain capable of conceptualizing things like that. I think when you witness something that causes that much trauma, that is going to be very front and center, and a lot of stuff is going to trigger that for a very long time. So,
and if it's the worst thing that's ever happened in his life.
And he notes that throughout his life, he's able to basically use this skill that came out of this in order to conceptualize things in his head, to do things in his head that allow him to build stuff and see stuff and how things would flow and how they would happen and how they operate in the world that leads to him being able to create some of the things that he does.
Well, and the mastery of this involved, he said that every time he had one of these visual ideations in his head, it was always something that he had seen. Mm-hmm. The only reason that he was able to beat it is he would actually be able to start to conceptualize ideas in his head instead of something that he had seen, something that he was thinking.
And that's why I think it's not so much a hallucination, because hallucinations are usually nonsensical stuff that you haven't seen in that manner.
Is it any different than being on mushrooms and telling yourself, this is all right? It's okay.
Yeah.
This is a garden hose. It's not a snake.
When you start to see the trees melt.
Yeah. You're telling yourself, but he could visualize it because of his visual memory. He was doing the same thing we do on mushrooms.
Exactly. Just much, much more effectively.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that because he had seen things, he was able to just have such a vivid imagination of seeing that hallucinations do sound cooler. Like, how do you figure this stuff out? Everyone comes up with the excuse, I just thought it up. He's like, I fucking hallucinate and I just piece this shit together.
Yeah, I just created it. And we'll talk about one of his inventions that he kind of describes as a massive just hallucination, a magnificent event where there's a flash of light and the idea comes to his mind. Tesla ends up getting back into the familial good graces and kind of becoming a hero of the society, or a hero of the neighborhood. For some reason, and I don't know if this is just how people thought back then or what, the fire company had created this pump system to be able to pull water out of the river to put out a fire. Mm-hmm. They had this big grand display where they were going to show off this brand new technology.
You know all that money we've been taxing you? Behold.
Instead of running a test, they started the fire first. And
Can't have a proper test without a fire.
Yeah. Firemen are like, fear not, community. We have this machine, and once we turn it on, we will put out the fire. They had just tested it minutes before the crowd had gathered, I'm sure. Knew that it was going to work. As soon as they hit the on switch, nothing happens. Tesla has this crazy conception in his mind to where he has this flash that he can see that there's something wrong with the intake hose. Being a tall, wiry young man, he jumps down into the stream that they were pulling the water out of, swims down to where the intake was.
Father, hold my jacket.
Yeah, do you think he emptied his pockets?
No!
He jumps in there. He realizes that the intake hose has basically folded over itself, which is stopping the water from flowing. Of course, the fire department's panicking because not only is there a building that they just started on fire to put out, now there's a young boy that just jumped into the stream and he might be drowning. all of a sudden, as soon as Tesla unkinks this hose, the water shoots out and the fire is put out immediately.
The day
And
is
Tesla's
saved.
name is everywhere as the boy that fixed the machine. Yeah, pandemonium.
Thank God he didn't have to put his hand in. Can you imagine that? Like he fixed it, but he lost his hand. So yeah, he's the talk of the town. He's showing an aptitude for just kind of looking at stuff and being like, I don't fucking know how that works. Do you have anything between 1870 or before? Okay. 1870 moves to a place called Karlovac for his high school or whatever, passed for high school back then. Amazingly enough, still 4 years, which is kind of weird.
You're going to skip over the name?
I didn't write the name.
The Higher Real Gymnasium.
Okay.
What the fuck is that?
I don't know.
I guess they called gymnasium school back then, but they called it a real school?
Buddy, there is something we discussed during a Greek topic, what the term gymnasium comes from.
It's not where they got naked and oiled themselves up and wrestled the
God damn it, it might
prodigies.
be. But there was something else about it that had something to do with academia, like it covered all the disciplines or something.
Okay.
Anywho, moving on.
He does move in with his aunt and his uncle. Did you hear about that? About how his aunt and his uncle worked?
No.
So his uncle was like a real big war hero. And his aunt was somebody who was very prim and proper as far as how things would go. And he talks about it as a time in his life where he's never been hungrier, but he was getting the tastiest food of his life. Like as a young man, his aunt would make him all of these meals and they would sit down and his uncle would have this just big slab of steak in front of him. And his aunt would cut just the little most delicate thin slices off of the roast and give it to Nikola. And he said that one day his uncle was the one that was cutting the meat and gave him a slab like he did. Mm-hmm. Tesla said that he lifted his fork and his knife and was about to dive into it when his aunt grabbed the plate and pulled it out from in front of him and told her or his uncle that he was a frail boy and he couldn't handle that much meat. And he's like, I went to bed hungry that night.
I'm frail because of this. Ends up, this is kind of where he gets his interest piqued in physics and electricity by a physics professor that has basically a little demonstration of kind of what the current happenings on of electricity are at this point. He gets in trouble with some of his teachers because they don't believe that he's able to perform like advanced calculus in his head, which I get if you're at school, like in the time that we attended school, because calculators fucking existed, and also school nowadays because you can just talk into your phone and it'll give you the answer. But to accuse someone of that you see get the right answer and don't see them doing the notations on it or anything, what else are they doing besides doing it in their head?
It's like Father Pat seeing the first dunk. You don't quite know what to do, so you call a foul.
No, wait.
You can't explain it, so you have
Look
to
at the
say
rule
that he's
book, Father Pat.
You have to say that he's cheating.
You can't just be jumping up in the air like that and slamming the ball through the hoop. So ends up getting inspired by one of the professors there and ends up graduating in 3 years instead of the normal 4.
Got there in 1870, graduated by 1873.
Great things ahead of him.
Yeah, there's something ahead of him, directly ahead of him.
I was going to hit that. I was building it up to then bring it back down to earth because cholera cares for no one. And it ends up putting him down for 9 months.
So hilariously, as he's describing this, he's talking about how the cholera outbreak, he thought everybody in town was so stupid. He's like, they thought that it was traveling through the air, so they were burning incense to try to get everything. Those fools did not understand that it was in the water that they were drinking that was tainted. And then in the next sentence, he's like, as I returned home, I got cholera. It's like, okay, so they're morons, but you're the one that got cholera.
I temporarily forgot and drank some of the water, actually. I was so thirsty. So it gets pretty bad because at a certain point, they think he's already kind of a small guy. He's a small kid anyway. So things aren't looking good. Again, this is back like in the 1870s. So cholera probably had a pretty, high rate of death.
Well, and cholera, as I understand it, you're either going to puke yourself to death or poop yourself to death. That seems to be the common refrain with how people die of cholera.
So, he's sick. Father. And
He fakes it. I think he fakes it.
Oh yeah, I'll get to it. He comes over. Yes, Nikola. If I if I recover, may I not go be a priest like you want me to, and may I please go to engineering school instead? He's like, this is a weird request, Nikola. He's like, please, Father, I don't. No. Okay, yes, you can go.
Time.
Yeah, you can go to engineering school, whatever you want. Oh, okay, I'm going to rest now. And the next day, he's like, I feel better. So his father's true to his word, though. I think his father, he's like, will you swear it to God, Papa? I don't normally like to do that, but
I work for him, man. Isn't that enough?
yeah, so he ends up going along with it, and basically he's like, yeah, you can totally go to engineering school. I'll send you to the best one that I can find. Everything's set, right?
Almost.
Okay, hold on. Conscription comes up because there's a war going on like there happens to be in Europe every other year.
Turns out the Austro-Hungarians needed an army.
Yeah, who'd have thought? So Habsburg at that time?
Might have been.
Oh, I bet it was.
Yeah.
Because we got toward the end of the Habsburgs, didn't we?
Yeah, should be.
So, they need an army and they're conscripting people. And so, listen, Nikola just got over cholera, man. You can't send him off to fight. He's got shit to do. He wants to go to engineering school. You're going to have to take to the mountains for like a year, right?
You're going to have to roll around in the countryside in hunting gear with just a bag of books.
Which he ends up doing, ends up surviving the year, actually comes out of it a little bit healthier. Apparently being up in the mountains, much like Marco Polo along the Silk Road and everything. You get some of that fresh mountain air. Also, probably having to hunt your own food and run around and shit is going to make you a little bit fitter. So
I'm not sure what he was hunting. I think he was probably throwing books at animals to try to kill them. I'm not sure what he was hunting too much of.
I'm not going to lie to you, buddy. I didn't think about this too far. He probably had some pretty fucking ingenious traps and ways to kill these animals.
Yeah. His whole idea with reading I thought was very interesting. While he's sick with cholera, he does end up finding the author Mark Twain that he then later befriends in life.
Cool as shit.
And
he's reading, isn't he reading like Huck Finn?
Yep. And he's
Sawyer?
out there on the range in his army gear trying not to get conscripted.
Oh, shit. I did not even I knew that he had read the books, but he had to be out there just like, he was trying to find a raccoon. He's like, I got to make a hat out of one of these things.
Yeah, he was doing some wild stuff. But as far as reading goes, his dad told him that he didn't want him reading too much at a young age because there was an old wives' tale that the more you read, the worse your sight gets. And he's like, my dad couldn't pull my face out of a book.
Isn't that always kind of the stigma before you have any idea about just eye degraded and everything like that? If you saw a kid reading or with glasses, you'd be like, oh, he's a fucking bookworm. He's got his nose. Yeah, I think that's, there's still that shit.
It got bad enough to the point
I can confirm it's not. I read a fuck ton and I didn't need glasses.
It got to the point where Nikola's dad would take all of the candles out of the house at night because he's like, you're not fucking reading anymore.
God forbid you learn something.
Turns out that Nikola did learn something because he would go out and buy beef fat and he would create molds and he would get wicks and he would make his own candles. He said that he stuffed his keyhole and underneath his door in his bedroom and then he just lit these tallow candles that he had made himself and he would read all night long. So now he's out in the middle of nowhere, and his dad's like, we just got to keep you alive. He's like, okay, I'm bringing my books. He's like, fuck. Okay, fine. Just take your books. You lived through cholera. I don't want you to die.
These show me how to make candles. All right. He ends up, do you have anything in the woods? He just was in the woods.
Yeah, there's really, all he was doing was just trying to avoid going into the army. And he does it with pretty good success.
He's able to just come back in. I guess not a lot of questions asked about like, hey, why haven't you been serving the army? You know what? I was actually in the woods for the last year.
I was lost.
Messages weren't getting to me. Hello, I'd like to enroll in the Imperial Royal Technical College in Graz, please. So 1875, he gets in there on a scholarship. His first year, I think he was one of those people that was so happy to be out of the woods. He's like, I will just do whatever it takes. He ends up passing with, exemplary scores and everything like that. I think he did 9 exams when only 6 were required. He was a top student, and he basically kind of starts to lose interest a little bit after this first year.
Well, so this is one of the very fascinating things.
I guess lose interest isn't the right term. He loses interest for a bulk of what he's supposed to learn at this school.
And part of it was one of his professor, Jacob, his name is Poschel, I believe. We'll talk about him in a second. But in his first year, he develops this study habit to where he's sleeping about 3 hours a night.
I think it was 20 hours of work, 4 hours of sleep.
His body, which there's no way. You have to have time in between work and sleep. You don't just walk home and pass out. Like, even if it takes you an hour to get home, that's still a max of 3 hours of sleep or 2 hours of sleep before you get up and go.
It's an insane work ethic.
Yeah.
I'm not questioning that. But again, this is along the signs or along the same lines as Donne would have exceeded me in all these things. I had hallucinations. It's just simply utilizing kind of a little bit of a punch up to drive your point home. What sounds better? Hey, I worked for 19 hours and I slept for 5, or I worked for 20 out of the 24 and just slept for 4.
So he puts on such study habits that his dad, and it seemed like a problem with as much as he was working on. Mm-hmm. Ends up going home after his first year. His dad goes, I don't want you to go back. You shouldn't be going back. And he gets pretty angry about this whole scenario.
Tries to get him back in the priesthood, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He doesn't end up realizing until after his dad dies that the reason that his dad was telling him this is because all of his professors had written notes back home saying, your son's going to kill himself with this type of schedule.
And there are those people, there's been a bunch of research about it, that there's a very specific group of people, it's a small percentage, that can like operate very efficiently off 5 hours of sleep a night. I'm not, he could have been one of those people exist all throughout history. You just don't hear documentation about him. I think he is somebody that, again, probably fudged a little bit. He's probably working 16 to 17 hours. He's taking an hour break here, an hour break there. He's eating some food. He has to travel. You can't just say that. What are you going to say? Oh, it's not really 4 hours I'm sleeping. I travel a half hour each way and I'm only getting 3 hours. It's a bit of a punch up. He still has this insane work and study habit.
You can't survive on 3 hours of sleep.
Biologically, no, you cannot. And the man lives to be old.
Well, paired with this crazy work ethic that he gets, there's this lecture that he gets from a man named Jacob Poschel. The professor is basically explaining what's known as a DC motor versus an AC motor, a direct current versus an alternating current. And at this point in time, everybody pretty much knows at the school that Tesla is the shit. He's the man. He's the smartest guy around. All the professors are shocked by it. And Poschel's talking...
See what you did there? Shocked. Electricity.
Oh, shit. Didn't even know. Poschel's basically explaining that an AC motor will never be able to work because there are brushes inside of the motor of a DC where the actual electric current is flowing in to make the magnet spin. And we'll explain this at some point during this episode, but he's explaining this and Tesla raises his hand. He's like, but I think I can do an AC without the brushes.
Think of it, if you have like a DeWalt tool or you have an older sets had brushes, newer sets are brushless.
If you ever saw sparks on the back of a drill, it was because
of the brushes.
Brushes were firing off the extra electricity instead of putting it to it.
There was something cool about that, though.
Very cool. I remember staring at it. So the professor looks around at the class and he kind of laughs and he goes, Mr. Tesla might be bound for great things in his life, but Mr. Tesla will never solve this.
Yeah.
After Tesla hears that, he has this single track mind.
He becomes obsessed with being like, don't you ever doubt me, motherfucker.
And I think that's where some of his study habits kind of hurt him more because he was so far in everything else that he tried to just direct so much time to just trying to solve this electrical engineering feat that he stopped caring about everything else. He also slips into this new hobby that he finds in gambling.
He likes it.
Loves cards.
Oh, he likes it. I think part of that comes out of, so he's presented basically this, what they deem as an insolvable, which is basically just their way of saying like, oh, if you want to try to make me obsess over this, tell me it's not able to be solved. He runs into, based on, I'm guessing, a lack of resources and also a lack of experience at this point. He's never been around this stuff a lot. He just simply knows, I think, based on what he can theorize in his head, that if this type of direct current exists, an alternating current, because we know it exists, in some way has to be feasible to produce or whatever. So when he's not able to, you know, when it's kind of like, hey, we can't make this movie right now because the special effects aren't advanced enough to make it or something like that. I think it's that kind of scenario where he does not have the experience, nor does he have the resources to try to implement this in a successful manner. He gets upset because he runs into some blocks on this, finds out that he has a penchant for the cards, and he starts gambling his ass off. Enough so to where I think he ends up burning through very quickly, like an entire semester's worth of money that he's supposed to use for like rent and board and everything.
I believe it was in a night.
He had won a bunch. And so when he gambled, he had this, and I think this was a thrill thing for him because of what I'm about to cover. For him, he would win, and then the people that lost, he would give them their money back at the end of the night. But when he would lose, no one's going to do that shit.
You're a sweet man, and I think that you have a really good heart, and I think that good heart that you have.
Okay, I get what you're getting at right now. Fine. Regardless, he liked to gamble. He ended up winning some. He ended up losing more.
Yeah.
And it got bad enough to the point where he had to have been in danger from not being able to go to school because he didn't have any money. Parents knew what was going on. He came home. His mom basically was like,
"This is the greatest thing that I've heard a mom do."
Nikola, you must stop this. And he's like, "Stop what, Mom?" She's like, "You must stop the gambling. You're going to ruin yourself. You have so much potential." He's like, "I will never stop the gambling. I love the thrill." And she's like, "Then get your thrill and take all of our money." And goes to hand him all of their money. And at that point, he was like, "God damn it, Mom. Now I can't do this."
Oh, no. You didn't even give her perfect quote. She hands him the money and she goes, "Here, this is all of our money. The faster that you burn through it, the faster you will be over this." Just the concept planted in his mind, like, oh, she's willing to give me everything that they have to cure me of gambling. I'm a pretty big shithead for doing this.
Maybe this has become an issue for me.
If she's willing to wreck my entire family's livelihood because I like to gamble, it's probably time to give up. And he credits this kind of discipline for him being able to give up gambling for a shitload of other things. He says that later in life he's experiencing heart arrhythmias. It's because he's drinking like 15 cups of coffee a day.
Yeah.
Probably way fucking more than that. I'm sure Croatian coffee is probably pretty strong. But he just says, "I've realized that after my morning cup of coffee, which is probably 7."
He had to shit so much.
A ton. I'm sure it was just constantly, that was what was going on.
20 hours. It was actually 16 hours a day of work. I spent a cumulative 3 to 4 hours in the bathroom.
I was thinking about shit the whole time, though.
Yeah.
I was running it through I had a chalkboard in the bathroom.
That's it. I had a notepad. I had a little desk in there. I figured out an efficient way to do that. He actually goes, after this, doesn't he go missing for a while?
So he tries to fix his schooling in his final year. He goes back. There's tests that he's missed that he's asked for extensions for. The school's just probably had enough of him. He ends up getting expelled before he can finish school.
That's right.
He leaves school December 1878. Doesn't tell his family other than they were notified that he was expelled. Just takes off in December 1878, basically in shame. He goes to this town named Maribor, we'll go with, and no contact to his family, no contact to his friends. There was a rumor around school that he had gone swimming in a river and just drowned himself. And the only way that the rumor was dispelled was one of the students had actually gone back to this town because it was their hometown and just saw him. Was like, "Oh, you're still alive." He's like, "Yeah,
What are you doing here, man?"
I just left school." I was like, "Oh, I thought you died."
Yeah. Ooh, that's not what we told your folks.
Yeah. So March of 1879, somehow his father ends up finding him. He was given this job as a draftsman, which is pretty funny to think about it because I think most draftsmen now use like CAD, and he just had a mental CAD basically that he was creating these plans with.
Never have the windows been more squared.
His dad
There's buildings still in that town that are still standing.
and those are the only ones like, oh yeah, that's the Tesla quarter.
Weirdly enough, yeah, you're not going to believe this, but we found old city records.
Those 10 houses still standing. Tesla's work. So his dad shows up, just begs him to come home. And I don't know where it comes from, but I had heard a lot on one or two documentaries and then on a couple podcasts that there may have been a pretty tense relationship between his dad and Nikola. I don't think it was there.
The kid just kind of bounced. They thought he died. There would be some tension there of his father finally finding him being like, what the fuck?
Yeah, but just
Do you know what your mother's been through?
in his whole life, as far as like his dad telling him not to go back to school and telling him not to read and doing all this, I think that there kind of becomes more of a stigma that they didn't have a close relationship. I think his dad loved the shit out of him, especially after
his dad
Don
was just
A.
doing
died.
what his dad thought he was saving his life. His dad thought he was saving his vision. Yeah, I think if there was any animosity, it would have been from him misreading the reason his dad was doing the things he did.
And it seems like it was all coming from a place of love. So he begs him to come home. Nikola listens to it, and the stories that I had heard a couple times was he finally came to his senses and went home to be with his family. He actually just gets deported later that month because he doesn't have working papers to be in that country. So getting deported, he has nowhere else to
your
go.
buildings are amazing, but you don't got your shit together.
Yeah, we just can't have you here. We ran your social security number to try to pay you.
Yeah.
Turns out you didn't have one. So he does return home. He returns home late March 1879. He returns home to finish school. His dad had been like, hey, if you come back, we'll send you to Prague. Everything will be okay.
Like weeks later.
April 17th, 1879, Tesla's father ends up dying. So in a work of fate, I would say that he was able to at least return home and spend time with his family before he lost his father.
So January, after he probably helps with the family affairs, because I think he was at that point, well, no, he wouldn't have been the oldest kid. He still, got 3 sisters, I think, at that point.
Yeah, he was the fourth of 5. So
he's still the
two older
boy that's
sisters.
responsible for probably handling the family affairs.
He's still the most important person in a Serbian child.
Yeah.
Child rankings.
So it takes a little while for him to get all that stuff squared away. In January 1880, with his uncle's financial assistance, basically able to go to school in Prague. The only issue with that is he actually arrives late, misses enrollment, can't get in. He ends up attending some classes, I think, in like philosophy and just kind of attends lectures, but gets literally none of the benefit.
He was an auditor, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
They did say that there was another issue that all of the lessons were taught in Greek, and he didn't speak Greek at the time.
At that time,
yeah,
I guess.
but through the process of trying to get into the school, he just learns Greek.
Yeah.
Absolutely incredible.
I know it now. He ends up moving to Budapest in 1881 to work at the telegraph company, which is kind of converting at that point over to the telephone company, correct?
Yeah. So he moved to work at a telegraph company named the Budapest Telephone Company.
They were already setting the precedent. He basically comes in at a time when they're kind of in the transition, so he's not really working on telegraph because they're trying to install the system for telephones. He ends up being made the chief electrician of that company. And I want to say it might have been during that time. He's making some improvements because, again, they're working on phones now, so it's going to be more so receivers and speakers and things like that. He ends up designing or starting to design the like conical speaker that is now used pretty much in every stereo speaker, things like that. If you look at a speaker in a car, it is slightly cone-shaped. Before that, I think they were just simply flat or something like that.
You know who invented those?
No.
Edison.
So he already improved on
Edison shit at this point.
Already improving on Edison shit. Okay, I like it.
He also made improvements on the telephone repeaters, and basically a repeater would just amplify the range that you could send out a telephone. Again, more amplification that he's just doing on other things already.
he's getting a ton of experience about how different forms of electricity also impact and interact with other things.
Very low voltage forms of electricity,
Correct.
but electricity nonetheless.
For a guy like this, probably the best way he can enter it in, shock himself a few times before he starts working with some of the higher stuff, when you know he probably would have just been like, what is... 1882, he ends up getting a job in Paris for the Continental Edison Company. And this was installing indoor incandescent lighting in the city of... it's the city of light, isn't it?
Patty.
So we're going to do an episode kind of on, as fascinating as this is, the conversion of these cities from like gas lanterns, which to me... the thought of that is just batshit insane. But I know I've seen in movies where you walk into the house, you walk into the hall, and you go and you twist the lantern and it comes on. But the fact that there are gas lines in these major buildings and cities and everything, this completely explains how fires were just insane.
Well, and the safety of daily life, just having open flames and gas in a house.
And children.
Yeah,
the safety is the height in which the thing is kept at. But it's crazy to think that when they were installing electrical, they were just like, oh yeah, we have all these gas lines that are just run to all these areas, and they just run all the electrical through like all the copper gas lines. Anyway, moving on. He gains a ton of practical experience doing this job.
Well, he has this repeating thing in life where the reason that he goes to Paris to take this job is because his boss at the telephone company, his name was Yvdar Puskas. Puskas is like, you're wasting your talents at the telephone company. You're going to need to go somewhere else. I can get you this spot at the Edison Company in Paris. Excuse me. Go over there. Take care of it. He starts installing these lighting systems, and he's such a cock when he writes. He's just such a dickhead. So he writes about doing this, and basically what it is he has checks and balances. Like, he's the one that tells them this is where you should put it, and then they have to have an inspector come over and look at it and be like, yeah, I think that's right, but I want you to put it here.
How would you know? As the inspector, they're like, you now have the newly created position of city electrician. They're like, what's that? Well, you have to make sure that all the electricity that's being brand newly installed in this city is done up to... You now have the job of writing the city's electrical code as part of your job. And you just have some guy coming out there and being like, oh, I mean, I think that looks right.
Yeah.
You know what we're going to do? Your guys' next 5 buildings, we're going to do them a little bit different. And then whichever one burns down, well, then, that one's the least safe.
That'll be the new uniform, the one that doesn't burn down.
I will update my code.
So he talks about how he's looking up at this ceiling to try to figure out where to put this light fixture. And he does the mental calculations in his head, and he points to an area, and he tells the installer that's where you're going to put the light in. And the installer looks up and he goes, are you sure? And he goes, yes. He goes, okay, well, I'll go get the inspector, and the inspector will come in and tell me if that's the correct position. And Tesla says, I didn't like that he was going to ask somebody else, but I was so confident that I was correct in my calculations that he was going to come in and agree. And then the inspector came in and he took a look at it, and I noticed that he plotted a point on the ceiling that was 2 inches just to the right of where I had plotted the point in my head. He had done all the measurements, and that was where he had decided. And once the installer asked him if that was the correct location, he looked up at it again, and he redid his math, and he pointed to a spot that was 2 inches to the left from his original spot, which was the original spot that I had put it in my brain. Like, he's just so excited about it, and it gets to a point where he's like, it was that day that the installers stopped questioning my brilliance.
The funny part of that to me is the fact that this dude, that Tesla at this point, probably already has more experience with electricity and with this stuff than the installer or than the inspector does.
Yeah.
And the inspector comes out there and looks up and then looks at Tesla and then looks up to try to follow Tesla's eye line and looks at it and is like, I think we're going to put it right there. And then looks at Tesla and like you just did to me.
Jerks to the left
moves
twice.
It, and he's like, and he's just watching Tesla as he barely moves his finger. And as soon as Tesla gives him that one right there. Management does begin to take notice. And at this point, they're like, listen, I think you're done with the whole lighting thing. We're going to have you start to design and build improved dynamos and motors. So a dynamo is just a generator. So it is the version of the generator that they're using in order to produce direct current power. And let's attempt this.
Let's skin the DC cat.
Okay. So DC being direct current, we're going to try to explain this in the simplest ways we can because honestly, that's the ways we tried to learn this. So DC being direct current is a flow of electricity that flows one way. What is electricity? Man, I really wish we had like sound effects so we could have like a lab setup and everything like that.
I wish we could flash the more you know afterwards.
Exactly. So atoms, not atoms, not you. Atoms are a positively charged nucleus with negatively charged electrons orbiting around it. I like to think of the nucleus as a planet, and I like to think of the atom or the electrons as asteroids or moons that go around. Jupiter has multiple moons, just like a nucleus has multiple electrons.
Protons and electrons are bouncing around those atoms like crazy.
Yep. So there is an outermost like shell of the atom, and that's called the valence shell. Think of that if you had moons orbiting around a planet, the one that is in the furthest orbit, that takes the longest orb, depending on its speed, but it's the furthest one out, which means that technically that's the one that the gravity is probably the weakest on or could possibly be pushed off course easiest. Now, the electrons out here, because of their distance, can break away due to external forces. Once those break away, those are called free electrons. And those can move from one atom to another. So basically, it's like a moon that gets discharged from another planet, then floating close enough to another planet where it then gets picked up in its orbit. But then that can also do the exact same thing. As it orbits around, it can then go to another orbit and go to another orbit.
It's like a 10-year veteran in the NFL that is on a contract that's more expensive than he's worth, so he will get cut from one team and
it's a
move
guy
to
looking
another
for the
team.
ring, baby.
Yeah.
He's looking for the ring.
chasing rings.
So basically think of it in a way, you know, when you were doing sing-along songs where it did the bouncy ball and it went on that?
Mm-hmm.
Think of that little curvature when it was bouncing as just this electron bouncing from atom to atom. And as that goes, that movement is what creates the flow of the electrical charge. So that is the flow of electricity. Electricity can flow through things called conductors, and pretty much common, metals a conductor, but mostly the ones that are mostly used are copper, gold, things like that. And the reason that copper is used in gold is because in the makeup of atoms that make up copper, it has a electron on the outer valence shell, which is then easy to use to then, bounce between other atoms and everything. You then have insulators. Insulators basically stop the flow of electricity, things like glass, rubber, and wood. Getting into some other terminology, sorry about this, we have amps. Amps are basically the same as current. It is the flow rate. Am I correct so far?
Yep.
Okay.
You're nailing it.
Voltage is the pressure that creates the flow. Think of a garden hose, and you have the hose itself that is a certain size. That's your resistance. A larger hose is going to let water out faster and more at the same time. Now,
What's the prostate in this situation?
The what?
The prostate.
I'll get to it.
Okay.
I'm going to finger around it for a second. So if you had two hoses, one was larger in diameter and smaller in diameter.
Black.
If you exerted the same amount of pressure in those hoses, it would be creating a larger flow out of the one with the larger, because there's less resistance to that. So if you have a consistent current, which is the flow rate, that is going through a high resistance, which think of putting a nozzle on one of those and restricting it down to a smaller.
Even putting your finger over the
Putting your
hose.
finger over the hose, that's actually going to create higher pressure, which is the voltage. It's the same principle, just like you said, putting your finger over the garden hose, the more pressure, that's your voltage. DC, working in the same way and everything, is just simply current that flows one way. AC, which is alternating current, is basically a current that if you were to look at it on a graph or a scale, DC is a straight line, where alternating current is the current that looks like a heart rate monitor where it just goes up and down, like radio waves.
Yeah, so put it on an axis, basically. Your x-axis and your y-axis. You have your energy going up, you have your time going horizontally.
Yeah.
A DC power source, if it's a solid power source that's continuously putting out power, that line is going to go straight, never getting any closer down to your x-axis.
It's going to put out the same amount over the same distance over the same time.
Yep. Unless it's a battery, then as the battery degrades and goes down, you're going to see it
But
start
with the constant flow, it'll maintain that consistent rate.
Yeah, and DC was fairly effective. These DC motors that were created were just first-gen electricity, basically, as far as being able to use these motors. They had benefits. They definitely had a lot of drawbacks. Kind of the way that a DC motor would be set up would be there were prongs that had copper that would be wrapped around the outsides of them, and then there was a magnet that would sit on the inside of it. As the magnet would be electrically charged, it would create an electromagnetic field that would then spin.
Because of the magnet, you have a positive and a negative, which causes it to react with the copper on the outside, forcing a rotation.
The polarity inside of it is going to cause it to spin.
Okay, so DC is a magnet, which is attached to the, I guess you would call it the drive shaft or the shaft. The magnet is what rotates inside a cylinder or housing in which the copper is around the outside.
Yeah.
Okay.
The way that this works, it creates these neutrons that Chris was talking about. It creates the activity, then it sends it out. As it sends it out, there's limitations to the amount of electricity or amount of current that a DC motor can send out as far as distance.
Correct. So DC at this point is it's the easier one to understand. And because it's easier to understand, more work has gone into developing ways to market it or make it capable to work in industry, things like that.
It's kind of the only plausible thing at that point.
It's the only game in town, but it's a localized energy source. So think of it in the sense of wherever you need the power is very close or it's on site. They have them on ships. So because the power isn't running a great distance, maybe the distance of the ship itself, you can get away with that. When you start needing to have a power plant or something that is not going to be on site, then you have to start bringing the transportation of that electricity, the distance into play. This is where AC, that's going to be the focal point of Tesla's, basically his invention, his studies, research, whatnot. When DC is traveling longer distances, because it's electricity, it builds up heat. The further along it goes, the more it's producing the same amount of heat, but all of that heat is burning off of this energy. It's losing a lot of its energy, which by the time it gets to where it needs to go, you only have an effective range of usable electricity.
Yeah, it's like dropping an ice cube in a hot glass. By the time it hits the bottom of the glass, it's going to be much smaller than when it went in.
Correct. AC doesn't create as much heat over distance, which results in less loss, which means that your usable range of electricity then becomes much further. It's much more effective as far as at range than DC is.
Well, we're talking about lengths of DC could travel effectively up to about a mile. So if your city is 4 or 5 square miles, in each one of those directions, you're going to need a power plant set up at a mile to continuously send that energy further.
When we talk about like the power plants and locations of these places, electricity is, again, to power a city, it's a relatively new thing. So when these plants come in that are going to develop this and, electrify these cities, they're looking and they're saying, where is the location of the most places that we have to service? We're going to have to go right smack in the middle of that. You can't build a power plant on the outside of a city planning for growth or anything like that, because you have to be almost in a spider web to just be, I'm going to service this circle or this radius where I can actually provide usable power. So it really limits the flexibility that you have on providing power to these places.
Oh, not to mention the gauges of the wires have to be so thick to send DC that the cost to wire a city is going to end up being like 10 times more expensive in copper costs for DC as opposed to AC.
Yeah.
But at this point in time, Chris and I keep saying AC. At this point in time, AC is like this hope and a dream because there's certain barriers in a DC motor that just would not work in an AC.
And it's the same. The thought process is the same as what drove Tesla in that first year of school when that professor said, this isn't something that is possible at this point. In 1884, we good there?
Yeah, before we jump into his trip, let's take a
before I
bathroom
get
break.
stateside, yeah. Well, hey there, all you sexy historians. How you guys doing?
It is time for
Socials.
Where can they find us on Instagram?
If they want to follow us, they can find us at Historically High Pod on Instagram.
That goes the same for Threads as well. You can also find us on Twitter.
Tell them about Twitter.
Historically High. That's Historically HI on Twitter.
And if you want to email any of your comments or suggestions, where can they find us at, Adam?
At Historically High Podcast at gmail.com.
Gmail. All right, and back to the show. All right, before we go back to Tesla, you got a bone to pick.
Yeah, so these incandescent lights that they're putting in, it's always pretty widely known that Edison was the man that invented the light bulb. In truth, Edison was the man that invented basically the commercially and residentially affordable light bulb.
Thomas Edison is the Henry Ford of automobiles, or of lighting. He did not invent the incandescent light bulb, but he is the one most well-known for like the Model T, cars, Ford, all that kind of stuff. What's that quote? I did not fail to create the light bulb. I did not fail 10,000 times. I figured out 10,000 ways to not make it. I'm sorry, man. That's what you say when you fail 10,000 times. Like if you knew how to do it, you would have done it on your 100th time.
Did you hear Tesla's response to that quote?
He's like, that sounds like a lot of wasted time.
Well, he's like, you wasted your time building 1,000 different things or 10,000 different things instead of just looking at the ones that work the best and trying to improve on them. You just wasted all this time. Instead of only building 100, you built 10,000. So it was a man named Humphrey Davy that actually was the inventor of the light bulb itself as far as the form of it and the way that it worked. It was Edison that looked at it and improved it in a way to make it affordable to send out to the masses.
Yes.
And this is Nikola Tesla working for Thomas Alva Edison. It's, when you say it, it's like, yeah, I know both of those guys. But to know that these two guys, that Tesla, who's AC, does end up beating out Edison's work in DC.
Yeah.
But Edison's the guy.
Yeah. We're going to end that today. 1884 rolls around. The Edison manager there in Paris ends up bringing Tesla to the good old United States.
Charles Batchelor,
to work at Edison Machine Works on Manhattan's Lower East Side.
You heard about his trip, right?
I'm sure I did.
Before he takes off on the boat, he's at the docks.
Oh, he gets his shit stolen, doesn't he?
Got robbed.
Barely makes the boat.
After he gets robbed and makes the boat, he is up on the boat, and there's a mutiny that happens on a commercial liner. And during this mutiny, as Nikola's trying to break up the mutineers, he almost gets thrown overboard. And this doesn't happen like towards the end.
This is early on.
Yeah. He talks about in his autobiography that this trip changed him because he said at the beginning he was standing up near the front of the boat trying to watch behind to see if anybody fell overboard so he could jump out and save them. And by the end of the trip, he just kept to himself.
Yeah.
He realized that his ideas of trying to save people were so stupid.
It's also
probably because
probably
he almost got thrown overboard.
Probably also lends to the fact that he didn't go back on a boat back across for a little while. His job was to basically troubleshoot how they were going to be doing installations of these dynamos, these generators, and to basically improve the actual generation systems themselves.
Yeah, he managed the Edison Machine Works, which was the manufacturing division for all of the Edison dynamos. Just absolutely such an incredible job. And again, we're in a situation where his shifts, he said he was working from 10 a.m. to 5 a.m.
Yeah,
not 10 a.m. to 5 p.m., not 10 p.m. to 5 a.m., 10 a.m. to 5 a.m.
One of the instances, because it's a pretty short residency here, so there's not a lot of things that stand out regarding his time. 6 months, yeah. During that time, he had actually been working on this cruise liner, the SS Oregon, which he was probably on, and the whole time he's thinking, just let me know if this thing's going out to sea because I want off of it.
Well, he's probably thinking, if I don't fix this, it can't move.
Yeah. He's also, that's also weird to think about, like ocean liners just have these electrical generators. Like, that's not something you'd think about. Of course, you're just like, oh, yeah, the Titanic had electricity and all that kind of stuff. But then you're thinking, like, oh, it's because there's these big, probably steam-powered dynamos and everything.
I think.
Yep. So, he ends up having an interaction with Edison during this time frame where I think Edison and some other guy are walking down the street. Tesla's just getting off work.
Oh, yeah. Edison and Bachelor, the guy that brought him over, were walking home from the bar, just pissed drunk. Tesla's headed the other way from the dockyards. And Edison goes, there's our Parisian out strolling the streets at night.
Thinking he's out been drinking and shit like that. He's like, I just came from work trying to fix the dynamos on this ship. And then as they're walking away, Edison in his drunken stupor is like, that is a good man.
This is a damn good man.
This is a damn good man. Apparently not that damn good in Edison's eyes because I don't know if it was the same manager, Bachelor, or whatever it was, but there's a manager that's basically like, we need 20 to 24 of these different variations of dynamo or generator created. Tesla ends up doing it, and it's supposed to be offered at $50,000 for a bonus for this.
Yeah.
He ends up doing this work, comes back, and he's like, I have designed your 24 different types of generator. I'd like my $50,000 piece. And they're like, oh, you thought we were serious? You, obviously, being from Paris and Europe, don't get our American sense of humor. We were totally kidding about wanting to pay you more money.
Yeah, it sounds like capitalism. So,
you didn't get paid before you did all that?
Well, we were paying you while you were working an hourly wage.
Do you want to show us the contract that said you would get the $50,000? So after this, he's pretty much like, you know what? Fuck you guys. I'm out of here. I think his journal entry wasn't really, didn't have a ton on the details, but basically ended up with, and that was the end of my time with Edison Electric.
So there's 3 kind of stories that bounce around from his time with Edison and meeting Edison. He may have met him a handful of times. The stories that are thrown around are he was able to pitch the idea of the AC motor to Edison, but Edison didn't have enough respect for him at the time to really care, and he passed on the AC motor. There was another time where he said it was the first interaction that he had ever had with Edison, and he tells this story differently depending on his mood, I guess. Edison heard his accent and assumed that the Serbian accent sounded a lot like a Transylvanian accent. So Edison asked him if he ate human meat.
If he had ever tasted human flesh.
And, of course, Tesla's like, what the fuck? No. Why would you say that? Not putting these two things together.
Motherfucker, do you think Count Dracula is real? Not even from the same place, mind you. And honestly, even if you thought he was real, he just drinks blood. He doesn't, eat the skin and shit.
Well, not to mention, how much do you know about Count Dracula in 1885? I don't know when Bram was doing his thing and writing it, but...
There were still legends of Vlad the Impaler, Vlad Dracula.
I guess Vlad probably comes too, and same idea.
But still, to have that be just your sensibility about any type of European accent that isn't French or English or some shit.
Yeah, it's like thinking that every Mexican dude's name is Juan. You can't do that. I don't really know what all comes into play, and it's interesting the way that he writes. I hate to keep saying the biography. You got to listen to it. It's great. I'm sure people can read it too. But he always has there's certain things in his life where when he's writing about it, you can tell that he's writing the emotions into it.
Yeah.
There's kind of these other emotional blind spots that he puts in, like him leaving. It was a very cut and dry, I didn't agree with this, I didn't like it, so I left. That's not how anybody that ever leaves a job after being promised $50,000 is going to react. And $50,000 at this point in time is like damn near $1 million. It's enough money to where he wouldn't have to worry about very much after that.
Yeah.
You don't just write, and then I ended my employment after 6 months. But that's how he writes it. He doesn't put in any of his feelings or his thoughts or his emotions into it. Whereas in other situations, when he's writing about some of the things that we're going to be talking about later on, he gives these big, grand descriptions of what was going on and the feelings that he had at the time because they were good feelings. It's almost like he tries to mute out tragedy. There's not a lot in it about when his dad dies, and it's a pretty big deal.
He doesn't want to explain the negative reactions or the negative emotions.
Yeah, there's just so much to this guy as far as the way that he looks at this stuff. And after this happens, it's kind of, for him to write so little about it, I feel like this next move kind of shows more than he needs to tell. He ends up teaming up with basically like a group of people that were scorned by Edison.
Yeah.
And the reason that Edison was so damn good and famous with what he did is he had this guy named Lemuel Sorel. Sorel was his patent attorney that he helped patent all of these different technologies under the Edison name. Now, again, that doesn't mean that Edison created this shit. It just means that his name is on the patent. So if his name's on the patent, he has privilege over these things to where he can put that out there to get copycats from not doing what he's trying to do.
Yes. So this is Edison's guy.
So he ends up hooking up with Sorel, who is also...
Yeah, so naturally the guy that hates Edison is just like, but his patent guy is so good. I could totally trust him to be impartial. Yep, this sounds good.
And Sorel he had also been screwed over by Edison too. He had been pushed off to the wayside after he helped him with a lot of these patents for a new lawyer. There was a guy named Robert Lane, a guy named Ben Vail. I believe Robert Lane was, again, another ex-engineer for Edison. So he's kind of bringing Edison's foils together to form the Tesla Electric Company. And there's a part of me that when I heard this in the beginning, I was like, well, why isn't this still around? Like, why didn't this take off? Because Tesla's a genius. Sorel knows exactly what he needs to do. And Sorel actually does help him out because he's helping him secure patents on these arc lamp streetlights that he was trying to fix for Edison.
Yeah.
But he's not just doing it for the arc lamp streetlights. He's going through and doing individual patents for the methods that are used to make them. So even if you can create an arc lamp streetlight, he's breaking it down to saying you can't use this wiring pattern that I had created.
It's the difference between being like, we just patented the arc lamps, the arc lamp. When someone else creates another arc lamp, they just have to make it different enough that they can say, well, our process for creating it, it produces the same type of like glow or does whatever. It's a similar shape, except it's a little bit different and we use these types of wires. If you're not patenting all the things about it, there's so many workarounds. The more holes you leave, the easier it is to get those workarounds.
Yeah.
Just to kind of jump back to an explanation of this AC generation or power generation method that Tesla is trying to sell.
We completely missed it, didn't we?
Well, I mean, you just barely talked about it.
No. We missed what happens in France. So him strolling through the park.
You're going to have to remind me of that.
So Tesla is in France, and at this point in time, Tesla's kind of had these mental breakdowns. And these mental breakdowns really started to kind of come up onto each other. He had one when he got kicked out of school. He had one when his dad died. He had one when he was actually working for the telephone company. While he's sitting in Budapest, he's trying to recover from one of these things. He's walking through the park one day. This is in 1882. So this was
Budapest or France or Paris?
I believe it was Budapest.
Okay. It's somewhere in Europe.
As he's walking through, he says that he's hit with this flash of light. And within this flash of light in front of him is this perfect blueprint that he sees for this AC motor. He sees that it's brushless. He sees that it has all of these different things that are going to make it work. And instead of going home and writing it down, instead of creating a schematic or something like that from what he saw, he just basically starts building things from memory. And there's this legend. He talks about it. There's been a million people that have talked about it. It confuses me a little bit. But he said that he was never one to write anything down. He wasn't somebody that would sketch blueprints and then work off of those blueprints. He would create these different kinds of things that he would do just directly from memory. So there weren't a lot of things that he could have left around that were repeatable kind of ideas. He would hypothesize, he would write notes and those kinds of things down. But as far as like a blueprint of what he did, this is what it was. And he said that this was the first time that it had become crystal clear to him basically the construction of this AC motor that he needed to make. It was going to be brushless. It also didn't have something called, where were they?
It was some type of little capacitor.
A commuter.
A commuter.
So a commuter is basically what the brushes rub against that create the electricity that then bring the electromagnetism into the magnet. Without these commuters, it also doesn't suck down because the commuter is where some of this energy is lost. So to pull the commuters out of it means that there's going to be a better flow of energy.
So, and the way I understand it, again, this might not be exact, but the way that and I'm not sure what about this design was the AC to DC difference, but he looks at this design of having the magnet being the thing that rotates, and the fixed position that it rotates within is the copper. He sees a way to basically say, actually, let's go ahead and create the magnetic field as the cylinder itself.
Flip it.
So I'm going to take a cylinder of metal that'll be the magnetic, that'll create the magnetic field. And I'm going to basically take a hamster wheel and I'm going to fit that right inside it. So just barely, it fits in barely smaller than it.
Yeah, there's an air gap, but it's a very small air gap.
Very small air gap. And this hamster wheel is going to just be completely, almost totally covered in these copper conductors, this copper wire. And then the magnet itself is going to be an interspersed, or what am I trying to say? It's when it switches on and off.
Laminated?
No, not that. Basically, when something, so it's a positive, negative, and there's these little strips on the magnet that are just...
Oh, polarity.
Correct. It's a different polarity, but it's not like half the magnet is this, it is. Half the magnet is one polarity, the other half is, but it's just little like alternating strips, basically. So that's what creates it, the self-perpetuation of spinning around. But because there's no gaps in the copper having contact with this polarity, it's able to create an alternating current. It's just much more efficient as well.
Just like Chris explained on the axis of how DC power is pushed in just basically a straight line. AC current is run with something, not run, but it produces something called sine waves. And basically a sine wave is along the x-axis, you're going to have a wave of energy that goes up and positive and a wave of energy that goes down and negative. Each one of those completions up and down is called a hertz. So when you have like a 60 hertz TV, that means that this wave is completing its up and down motion 60 times in 1 second.
Okay.
Which means that it goes from full power to no power 60 times in 1 second.
I love this because we just talked about this before the episode. So because our homes, with the exception of like devices like a laptop, a phone that run on DC, because
anything that has a battery,
because it's a localized battery in the power source, things that you're running off your outlets are AC. Your lights are AC. So technically, when you turn on your light is not getting a 100% consistent flow of energy. It is getting off on, off on, off on, off on. But it is so quick that with lights, it doesn't allow the off portion, does not allow sufficient time for the light to dim or cool down enough to where your eyes can actually perceive it. So when you have a TV or something that is 40 hertz, 60 hertz, that TV, the reason why people will market and say this TV is 120 hertz or whatever is because there's not supposed to be, it's imperceptible anyway, but it's like, well, you won't see any screen flicker with this or anything like that because this is 120 hertz. It's cramming 120 of those wavelengths up, down into a second, which means that there's a reduction in time that there's technically no power.
Which kind of is interesting because it's basically, as this is flowing, a DC current always flows one direction.
Yeah.
It always flows, I believe, positive to negative. As these sine waves are going up and down, you're seeing this swapping of currents going alternating directions from the positive going to the negative going to the positive as the wave dips. So like, it's constantly flowing in both directions.
And because of this, the way that it flows, it generates less heat. And I don't know, I used an analogy earlier. Think of having the garden hose. If you had DC power, think of a bunch of holes in the garden hose. It's losing all of that flow and all of that pressure to where there's just a trickle coming out of the end. AC is like a garden hose that hardly has any holes in it at all. So there's no escaping water, no escaping power.
And this whole entire time, Tesla is trying to create this model to do this. He supposedly ends up getting in front of a group of investors before he leaves for New York. He comments that none of them had the intellectual capacity to really understand what they were seeing, which, again, I'm not saying that that's hyperbole, because those guys were really smart probably back in the day. To make as much money as they did, they had to be fairly smart in the 1880s.
I'm also wondering, though, what the electricity is Greek to some of these guys. Investors are not guys that are completely learned. Yeah, they're the money guys. They're not learned in this stuff. So when you're sitting there talking to them about electricity and their knowledge, they're like, yeah, you mean like we've heard of DC and everything. We know that the Edison company, whoever has kind of the deal on this, and you're trying to tell them, yeah, but this stuff can, be sent a lot further and everything. They're like, well, why don't you demonstrate it? Well, it's a mile already. So what are you going to, you have to set up a demonstration that shows them you're able to power, a light bulb or something like that further away. You can't develop that kind of demonstration if you don't have money to fund the creation of a generator large enough to do that, buy all the wires, set it up, and actually show them what it is. So for them, you're saying, but I've created a new type of sorcery, and my sorcery is better, but I can't show you how. I can just tell you.
I can explain to you why this is more efficient, why this is better than a DC motor, but at the same time, you're just going to have to take my word for it to give me your money.
And then I'll show you.
Yeah. And so he doesn't get any bites. Eventually, this is after his time with Edison, this new company is formed, this Edison company.
Tesla company.
It installs one single lighting system in Rahway, New Jersey. Within a year of the company's inception, they're then dissolved. So those guys that built this company, Sorrell, that got a hold of a lot of Tesla's patents.
It's because he tied the patents to the company and not himself individually.
And as these guys dissolve the company, those patents end up reverting back to them and not to Tesla. Tesla lost all control of his patents, and he actually had for once in his life, he was renting an apartment in Manhattan.
And he was broke.
And they kicked him out of his apartment. They took away all his patents. They took away all of his money. And he goes on this kind of weird he's working for some kind of electrical repair companies doing some fixes. This is like Switchblade working in the small engines, working on the lawnmowers. And then he does something even crazier because he's just walking by seeing these guys digging a ditch one day. And he's like, hey, do you need an extra hand? And the dude looks at him. He's like, you're all spindly. There's no way you're going to do this. He goes, no, I'm here to I'm here to do this work. It's like, okay, go grab yourself a shovel, which I'm sure he was probably wearing like a suit. He probably didn't have overalls.
$2 a day or something like that he was making.
$2 a day, he becomes a ditch digger. This man that we have to thank for the electrical grid was just digging ditches in kind of this lost period of time after Edison butt fucked him, after the guys that Edison screwed over,
Edison adjacent guys butt fuck him.
Yeah.
And at that point, he's got to be like, no more. No one associated with Edison at this point.
He had made some connections, I'm sure, along the way. He had this kind of friend business partner named Alfred S. Brown. He was a superintendent for Western Union. He had an attorney named Charles Peck. Charles Peck and Brown both kind of look at Edison, or look at Tesla's creations and hear what Tesla's talking about with this DC motor.
We got the names mixed around. So the one that he ended up dissolving was the Tesla Electric Light and Manufacturing Company.
Okay.
The one that he founds with Alfred Brown and Charles Peck, who thankfully turn out to not be insane douchebags.
Yeah.
That's the Tesla Electric Company.
Okay. They formed the Tesla Electric Company in 1887.
That's the same time that he develops the induction motor, which is this motor that generates the AC power.
It all kind of comes together for him finally. After all of the fights we see that go on in his life, this is kind of the first time that he ever gets his footing. He gets his first lab. His first lab at 89 Liberty Street in Manhattan. I looked at it today. It was his laboratory back then. The only thing that I saw on Google Street View was a giant DHL van that was parked in the way. But regardless, it's in Manhattan. It's a giant town where he's in the big city lights. This is the same year, as you just said, the AC induction motor is created. It's a polyphase current brushless motor. The difference between polyphase and a single phase, in America, we calibrate everything to 60 hertz, and it's single phase. Mm-hmm. In Europe, I want to say that's in all of North America and South America. In Europe, they use something called a polyphase, which is basically, instead of having one sine wave, there's 3 different sine waves that are being used that are overlapped. So there's less of a drop in time between the tops of when things are electrified.
So it automatically, because you have 3 sound waves there, utilizing those, it's essentially more hertz because it's 3 times.
It's just more efficient. I believe theirs is 50 hertz is what they have theirs calibrated at in Europe and everywhere else. But brushless motors are huge because his professor, all the way back then, said Nikola Tesla will do great things in his life, but this will never be something that he's accomplished.
Suck it.
Finally accomplishes
Professor in
it.
Prague.
Ends up getting it patented May 1888. His first demonstration comes pretty quickly after that. I'm sure he had figured out at this point in time, he's like, okay, don't tell anybody. Don't tell anybody. Create it. Don't tell anybody. Patent. Demonstration. Mm-hmm. They can't steal it from me if I get the patent first. May 16th, 1888, in front of the American Institute of Electrical Engineers.
That's where you need to show up and show out.
Yeah, in front of it just blew their tits off. George Westinghouse, a mountain of a man, was sitting in the room that day, and he was so impressed. Westinghouse is somebody who we've referenced in some other interesting ways. We were talking about before, the Westinghouse tractor that Henry Ford ended up teaching his neighbor how to run in his fields back in Dearborn, Michigan.
Yeah, I was thinking about this because my dad has a Westinghouse generator.
Yeah.
And weirdly enough, Westinghouse has been around for years and years and years and years and years, all, even before this.
I don't know if I've mentioned this before. My first CD player, 3-disc changer, bought it at Kmart with my own money off a layaway. White Westinghouse.
Nice. I didn't realize how big of a brand, because Westinghouse is what kind of works with the actual electrical generation portion of it. It's the electrical motor. So like in a generator, Westinghouse could design the whole thing, but the engine, the gas engine, might be a Briggs and Stratton or something like that. So stuff isn't always labeled as Westinghouse, even though it has a Westinghouse part or generator in it.
Yeah, this is very much like we talked about in the console wars.
Yeah.
The chips and everything that are inside of a Sony PlayStation can be made by somebody else.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's not, you don't share a name just because your technology.
Correct. And technically, if you don't have exclusivity, that chip can be used in other systems, other computers, things like that.
Westinghouse was impressed. He thought this was pretty great. He ends up offering Nikola a deal. He actually had another chance I don't know why it pops for me so many times, but he had an opportunity to buy an AC motor that had been built in 1885 by an Italian physicist named Galileo Ferraris. Galileo and a guy that had Ferrari in his last name, and he just screwed it up with an S at the end of it. Galileo Ferrari sounds so cool.
Oh, yeah.
But for some reason, Tesla always has problems with Italians. Throughout his life, he keeps trying to fight the Italians. Westinghouse decides instead of Galileo's motor, he wants something here, American built, something that he probably has better access to, that he doesn't have to deal with bringing over Galileo or anything like that.
Serbian invented, American made.
This deal was for $60,000 in cash and stock, and then a royalty of $2.50 per AC watt produced. Nowadays, I want to say they said that $2.50 per AC watt produced is something like $80 a watt.
Yeah, it's insane. It was like per AC horsepower, however they calculated it at that point. They said that, okay, so things are going to happen along this $2.50 stipulation, but had this thing maintained in effect for Tesla's life, he would have been, I think, the first billionaire or something along those lines. Or the fastest billionaire.
Along with this, he gets hired as for a year-long contract as a consultant, $7,000 a month, which is roughly equates to about $70,000 a month in today's money.
Yeah.
That's some pretty good cash to be making.
Yep. So, go ahead.
He has kind of this moment where he's figured this out. He's back living in Manhattan. He gets this love of Delmonico's Steakhouse in New York, and he has these really weird eating habits. And the eating habits are weird just because generally they're weird, but they're also weird because Tesla said that he had fluctuated his adult weight from when he was 18 years old to when he died. He said that it had fluctuated 4 pounds each direction.
Yeah, he was always, that was always kind of the consensus, is he was he's a lithe fella.
Yeah, so this dude would order a rib roast or a flat iron at Delmonico's.
It was always filet mignon.
Oh, it was filet mignon, not flat iron.
3 of them at a time.
You'd order 3 of them at a time. He would just eat the centers out of the racks of lamb. He wouldn't eat the outside meat or anything.
I think they said he switched. Originally was filet mignon. Then he got a taste for lamb, and he would eat just the centers out of it. He always had to have, is it 13 or 18 napkins? 18 napkins.
So this is the other thing that we forgot to mention. He's got some pretty bad OCD.
Oh, yeah.
And when we say he has OCD, it's not like, oh my God, I clean my house so much because I'm so OCD.
The dishes have to be done. I'm so OCD about it.
This motherfucker had to do things in sets of 3s. And he said sometimes this would take a minute. Sometimes it would take him hours to get things correct.
This also could be why he was able to invent this stuff, because he goes to do something and he does it 3 times.
Yep.
First time doesn't work. Second time doesn't work. Third time he's like, oh, okay, yeah, this actually kind of helps me out a little bit.
This is Mrs. Kelly having to walk through the house and touch Charlie's picture 5 times so he doesn't die.
Yeah.
That kind of level. The reason that he had 18 napkins was because anytime he got something on his face, he had to use 3 separate napkins to make sure to clean himself up.
A little bit of Howard Hughes type stuff.
Very, very interesting. But yeah, this man's physical fitness at this point in time, he's eating at Delmonico's all the time. They said even to the point to where like he would go back in the back and tell the chef how to plate things because that's how he wanted to eat them.
Yeah.
When he would sit down, one of the most pleasing things he would get besides eating would be calculating the volume on the plate or in the bowl that he was eating. Like that's what he had to do.
Yeah.
And these aversions that we've completely missed out on. Tesla might have been so smart because of the genius that everybody else that we've talked about kind of has in common.
There's a madness that comes with it. It can either be an evil madness or it can be compulsion or something like that. But I don't feel like you can have parts of your brain working like this, but then it's just like, oh no, it's totally only the good parts of the brain that are working overdrive here. It's either the whole thing or it's none of it.
And I think for lack of a better understanding or lack of a clearer understanding, Tesla was pretty much asexual.
Yes.
Tesla, there are stories about him flirting with women. There are stories about him flirting with men. And then there's stories about how he was a pretty good emotional manipulator.
Leonardo da Vinci is quoted as saying that pussy is the enemy of invention and innovation. And he would know.
Yeah, Tesla, he follows kind of that same idea. So this guy has so many different things going that are working in the background. He's fighting through so many things, whether he sees them as a benefit or not. They're always
he's
necessary.
fighting a fight out against Edison. Inside, he's fighting an internal struggle in his head.
So he finally gets in a situation with Westinghouse, George Westinghouse, to be like, here's my stuff. Thank you for the money. Thank you for the royalty. Thank you for the consulting fee. You guys handle this in a very Newtonian way. It's like Tesla wanted to create it to prove it to himself. Just like Newton would do something and just put it away and be like, all right, I'm done with it.
And
it's
moving
good.
on.
Yeah. Tesla did not give two shits about the manufacturing.
No. And so they have the plans. They know how to do it. They're implementing that. And this is a situation, we're going to probably do this as a different episode, but there's this thing called the War of the Currents. And basically it boils down to corporate warfare is what it is. You have Westinghouse that is now pushing this AC thing. It's going to be more efficient. It's going to be able to service further. It basically has everything over DC. You now have Edison Electric, and I think there's another company Thomson Houston that does DC as well. They kind of team up, seeing that this is going to pretty much put them under, and they're looking for ways in which to basically, in a way, not corporate sabotage, more of a public perception sabotage is what it's going to be.
It's kind of both.
Yeah.
Edison may have paid a man named Harold Brown a little bit of money to run some counter ops. Harold Brown was a former electrical worker that said that he had seen a lot of his coworkers die from being electrically shocked, and he wanted to look into it. He created this spreadsheet of all the deaths. He went through and he marked them all up, and he goes, each one of these men have died because of an AC shock on the job. When it turns out that when you go back and look at it, it's pretty much an even split between AC and DC, and it just kind of comes out that maybe taking large amounts of electricity in your body is just bad.
This thing gets so weird. Just an example is there is this, I can't remember who it was, but someone decides to make an electric chair as a new form of...
I gotcha.
Okay.
1890, New York is trying to figure out a better, more humane way to kill somebody than lynching, than noose and tie, just like we talked about they used many years later in the Nuremberg trials.
Mm-hmm.
And
short rope.
They're looking for all these ways. And Edison, being the smarmy smart mouth that he was, is talking to Harold Brown. They're like, well, shit, why don't they just use AC electricity to do it?
It kills so many people anyway.
During this whole time before this happens, Harold Brown is going around to all of these different towns, and he's setting up these displays in public where he's paying kids 25 cents an animal to go out on the street and get the dogs, and to bring them there. And he's putting on these demonstrations where he's like, this is what 100 volts of DC does to a dog. He fucking shocks him. And he goes, this...
Dog's still alive?
Yeah, still fine. Just a little yelp.
Look, Spot's fine.
This is what 100 volts of AC does to a dog. There's a much louder yelp because he cranks it up to about 300.
Mm-hmm.
And he's basically electrocuting and killing these dogs in front of people to try to prove how much safer DC is for AC, but it's really just basically a sleight of hand trick that he's using because he's juicing up the AC volts.
Yes.
So we get to this point in time where William Kemmler...
Does your power kill puppies? Never use DC or AC, not even once.
It's just so stupid. So William Kemmler ends up facing the electric chair, and Edison had pitched this to the state of New York. Why don't you use AC energy to do it? And the whole entire time, Harold Brown is trying to push being electrocuted, getting called Westinghouse.
They don't do that until after.
Oh,
what
is
happens.
it after?
Yes.
So they hook him up to the electric chair. They use a Westinghouse AC motor generator to do the electrocution of William Kemmler. Kemmler ends up being shocked with so many volts and for a long enough period of time that it actually stopped his heart. And then, much like a defibrillator uses electricity to restart a heart, he was brought back to life through these volts.
So it's like they're leaving it on enough that he's dead and it's still running, and then he's alive. And then he's dead. And then he's alive. And then he's dead. And then he's alive. Which, regardless of if you're using AC or DC, how much testing have you actually done on this? Because this is the first person to be killed by it. You have no clue other than you've been shocking monkeys or dogs or whatever, trying to kill them to see, oh, roughly what's the weight of an animal equivalent to a human or whatever. This happens, and this is just basically a shitstorm. Somehow there's no, like, because again, the public doesn't know enough about electricity to know the difference. They just know, oh my God, AC is killing puppies, and also it's leaving the murderers alive. It's bringing them back to life. It can't even kill these guys. And so the public perception of this just hurts the shit out of Westinghouse.
So they publicly juiced Kemmler, I believe it was 3 separate times before he died. And this use of AC power to do this just scares the living hell out of everybody because, again, while this is happening, they're like, this is AC power that is being used to do this. This is the power
Motherfuckers, you didn't even
Westinghouse
try to
pushing.
use DC and explain that it would do the same shit if you used it at the same watts or amount.
Yeah, it's insane that this was the length that Brown and, by extension, Edison were trying to do. Meanwhile, Thompson and Houston don't like Edison at all. But they're both the DC players. Or I believe Thompson Houston was trying to switch over to AC, but they just weren't where Westinghouse was. So like, all right, well, let's team up. Let's see if we can do this. After this happens, it just absolutely fucks the business of Westinghouse. We're not going to talk about it in this episode, but trust me, it will be coming in the current wars. In 1903, we have a trained elephant named Topsy in Coney Island that was being put on display with this set of iron shoes.
R.I.P. Topsy.
Yeah.
And we can't get into it right now. Let's just say it involves electricity, poison, it's batshit crazy stuff.
Well, Topsy was a bad elephant because he had killed, I think it was 3 or 4 humans.
Yeah, don't fucking put animals like that in captivity.
Well, no, I mean, Topsy had to have swam across the ocean to Coney Island, or he was probably native to New York, you think, as an elephant.
Yeah, definitely.
And then just went into town and started stomping people to death. It's not like those people had been abusing him on Coney Island.
That's so fucking stupid. I've ridden on an elephant before when I was really little, when like a circus came to town, and you're like, oh my God, there is no possible reason logically that you should put that animal and children anywhere near. Not because they're animals that are naturally just dangerous, but keeping them in fucking trailers and towing around like that, anyone's going to go crazy, and those things could ramp. That's why you hear when elephants rampage. Yeah.
We all know about Kiko as well, so it doesn't matter if you're in the water or you're on land. It's a bad situation.
So 2 years later, Westinghouse is in pretty deep shit.
This is not 1903. This is back in the 1890s.
Yes, we're going back a little bit. Again, R.I.P. Topsy. So 2 years later, after essentially this exhibition, whatever you fucking want to call it with this, of the electric chair, Westinghouse is kind of looking down the barrel of financial ruin. The investors are going to start calling in their money. They pretty much go to Tesla and they're like, so here's the deal, man. Like, this thing looks like we're kind of coming up on the end of it. And Tesla's looking at this and saying, all right, if this is my lifeline for getting in, this is the proponent of AC. If this thing goes away, DC is just going to step back into the light. I don't know what's going to happen with AC, but I know that this is the way to go. So he basically negotiates and says, hey, you know that thing that was supposed to make me all of my money, the $2.50 for each AC horsepower or whatever my generators create?
It's got to be watt. I don't know. Watt may not have been invented back then.
Maybe not. I don't know. We'll go with watts, whatever.
A horsepower sounds
It's a lot of money that's coming out of this from
absolutely.
all the generators. He's like, you guys just stop paying me that. That's gone. That's off the table. This allows the recovery and for Westinghouse to basically continue on and provides them the time to basically kind of beat the bad publicity. And through the continuation of using Tesla's design, they're able to kind of start recovering. This basically gives people enough time to be like, maybe the electric chair thing wasn't due to that. And it starts to give them that opportunity to show that even if people still think that, AC is going to be the much better route to go for providing energy to essentially the masses.
Well, in Westinghouse, I'm not going to say they fumbled the ball after Tesla gave it to them, but there was a lot of stalled production on any of the AC stuff. because as their engineers were getting a hold of Tesla's IP, basically, they were trying to make improvements on it, but they didn't have the breadth of knowledge in AC motors to be able to make the improvements. So as they're trying to tinker with this thing to either make it more efficient or make it more cheaply, it's not producing the same results, therefore they can't put it out. So a mixture of bad press and then just bad production kind of changes things for them.
So and this is kind of going a little bit outside of the exact topic we're talking about, but with AC, one of the other advantages on top of all the other ones we've already discussed is when you're transmitting and you need to transmit a lot of power, you can't just send the amount of power necessary to power a home. It has to travel in on power lines, and then you need to essentially dumb down that power to the amount that is then commercially usable by homes and consumers and things like that. And with AC, Tesla developed transformers. Like, that's where I looked for them, man. I don't see transformers on power lines anymore, so I don't know where the hell they're at.
I think the efficiency is that they're just way more spread out than they used to be.
Okay, but usually you would see transformers, the big trash can looking things on power lines. So when all of that power, much, 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 much more than necessary to actually use for a home, comes through those transformers, it's dialed down into the usable amount and then, spread out and provided to homes and everything. AC can do that very easily based on what Tesla had designed to go ahead and do that. DC has a huge problem due to the way that the wavelength works and everything like that. It can't convert like that. So whatever you're having to send, it has to be the amount that's usable or that they need on the other end. But then you're losing all the power when you're trying to send it. So it's much less cost effective.
Just the sheer brilliance of being able to create a transformer to be like, all right, we have to branch off 60,000 volts, 60,000 amps, whatever.
And not lose anything.
For this street alone, and then break it off into each one of these houses.
He's basically taking the thing on the hose, and it is, oh my God, this is either going to sound really stupid or it's going to be genius. So remember how you used to fill up a water balloon? You'd have to put the water balloon over the hose and fill up one at a time.
Yeah, the reservoir tip.
Yes, and now they have the water balloons that you can just hook up to your hose and it fills up 50 at the same time. Tesla designed the thing that can fill up 50 at one time.
Yeah.
And DC is basically you trying to sit there like a chode filling up one water balloon at a time during a water balloon fight.
Yeah, DC's throwing one spear in the air while AC's just like, here's 50 of them.
Yes.
We'll see what hits. One of the kind of international things that happens in Tesla's journey to becoming who he was, in 1889, there was the Exposition Universelle in Paris. So he goes back to Paris. I'm sure he has himself a croissant, smokes himself some cigarettes. Croissant, sorry. Nick ends up seeing Heinrich Hertz's work proving the existence of electromagnetic radiation and radio waves. He would improve on this to create what's known as a Tesla coil. High voltage, low current, high frequency, except for his was AC electricity. While he's over there, he also gives basically a demonstration for a little fancy society in Europe named the Royal Society. He gives his presentation and then goes on to work with a man named William Hooke. William Hooke was a part of the Royal Society and also walked those same hallowed halls as our man that we talked about, what was it, probably a year ago?
It's hard to keep track, buddy. Mr. Chuck Darwin.
Yeah, Charles Darwin and Nikola Tesla had members of the Royal Society that had seen both of their work shown in front of this society.
You got to imagine what if Hooke is the doubter? He's the guy that regardless of this stuff, he just comes home and he's like, oh my God, this guy came in talking about electricity, yada, yada, yada. And years down the road comes in, oh my God, this guy came in talking about evolution. Fucking, he wouldn't shut up about tortoises and stuff.
Well, and this is the same Royal Society, too, that also sat for Newton's
Yeah.
great findings as well. So I'm sure they're looking at Tesla thinking, not since Darwin had we seen such brilliant work. And then before Darwin, it was probably because of Newton. Like that's the Royal Society has a cast of characters that's got to be unmatched.
And if we're not making it clear enough, and you haven't already, go back and listen to the Darwin episode and the Newton episode.
Yeah. This is the same fair as he's over there, the same World's Exposition where the
Eiffel Tower.
yeah, that the Eiffel Tower is unveiled in front of the world.
And if you want to hear more about the World's Fair, go back and listen to the episode on it.
That might have been a year one episode, but it's. I'm so glad that we did it because we've talked about world fairs more than I ever thought we would.
I love hearing about this because then I remember also hearing, like, when we're going to talk about the Chicago one, it's like, oh shit, we did mention Tesla a little bit during, like,
the City of Light. Yeah. He would go around conducting these wireless electricity experiments using the Tesla coil. It just gave him so much confidence for these wild public demonstrations. And this is stuff that I just can't explain. I don't know how it works. I don't know how the electricity can pass through his body, but he would walk out onto stage and he would be holding a light bulb in one hand, and he would reach his left hand towards the Tesla coil, and somehow this energy was enough to flow through the air into his conducting body, but not kill him, enough to light this light bulb on the other side.
There's a movie called, have you ever seen The Prestige? It's a Christopher Nolan movie. Hugh Jackman, yes. Christian Bale, they're competing magicians. Hugh Jackman's character tries to figure out how to do this weird transporting man trick that apparently Christian Bale can figure out, and he goes to Tesla in Colorado. And as he's visiting Tesla, he's walking up to his laboratory and everything, and there's these light bulbs that are literally just stuck in the snow. And he goes and pulls one out, and it goes out. He sticks it back in the snow. It goes on. Now this, I don't know if this exactly occurred, but there was an instance, I believe it was in Colorado, we're going to talk about it here in a little bit, where Tesla was able to transmit electricity under the ground, enough so where they said that people walking in the town would see arcs of electricity connected between the heels of their shoes and the ground. But anyway,
it doesn't seem safe.
Exactly. But in this movie, David Bowie plays Tesla. He walks in, and the introduction to Tesla is you see the Tesla coil going off, and then you see the man walking through it, and it's just arcing and sparking off of him.
I gotta say, it was seeing pictures of Tesla, it's a great casting.
When you just see the one where he's sitting down and the Tesla coil's over him, and it just looks like a lightning storm, it's crazy.
But David Bowie as Tesla is a pretty good hire, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Very cool to see. 1890. This, I feel like there's a lot of crowning achievements, and there's a lot of things that end up basically pushing Westinghouse back to being the kitty's titties. 1890 in Ophir, Colorado. The stamp mill at the Gold King mine sits at 12,000 feet in the air, worth thousands of feet above the tree lines. That's how high up this mine is.
So is this when he moves to Colorado?
No.
Okay. Keep going.
The gold mine is trying to figure out how to get electricity to their processing facility to break down this gold ore. 3,000 feet down from them and about 3 miles away, there's the San Miguel River. It looked like a good power source. The plans that they got for a DC power plant, I do believe that this was still Edison at the time. Spoiler alert, Thomson and Edison end up both folding into each other to be created by J.P. Morgan into what is now known as General Electric.
I think they merged because they had to survive.
Yeah.
They became General Electric. J.P. Morgan acquired General Electric.
One of the reasons this happens is this DC power plant, just the cost to wire this was going to be $70,000 to use enough wiring for DC energy to force it all the way up this hill to, what was it? It was up 3,000 feet.
Because you have to provide that many more cables just to get it up there.
AC wiring?
10,000?
$700.
Oh, that's right.
It costs like 1% of what the DC cost was going to be.
We'll go with that one.
They use this 6-foot Pelton wheel. This puts Westinghouse so far back in front because of this proof. I believe, don't quote me on it, I believe this was the first use of a water wheel power generated plant in the United States at the time. It ends up becoming operational June 19th, 1861. And
1861?
1891, sorry.
Okay.
So you finally have like this one proof, not one, but this major proof positive that AC is so much more efficient that a job that would cost you $70,000 just to wire is $700 in copper.
It was an East Berlin, West Berlin situation.
Yeah.
You saw capitalism, you saw communism right next to each other, going head to head, and you found out that one was very superior to the other.
The engine that they used was an AC polyphase motor in this power plant. So you're seeing a polyphase instead of a single phase that we have now. It gives them a leg up on the bidding in 1893 for the 1894, or in 1893 for the Chicago World's Fair, the Columbian Exposition. It's called the Columbian Exposition because this was 400 years since Columbus had sailed the ocean blue and went over and put a bunch of people into slavery. Edison's group ends up giving a bid. I believe it was GE at this point in time in 1893. They gave a bid for $1.8 million to electrify the expo. It gets rejected. And I'm sure the GE was looking at it, they're like, this is the cheapest we can do it for. We're giving you the best deal.
Come on, baby, this is all we can do it for. You know how much copper costs?
The best deal that we can imagine. And the expo people are just like, that's way too much. And then all of a sudden, GE's like, what about 600,000? We can do it for 600,000. They're like, oh, really? Well, Westinghouse just gave us a bid for 400,000. So we're going to go with Westinghouse. GE being very angry about this, holding the patents to Edison's light bulbs, say, okay, well, good luck. Have them electrify it. Good luck without light bulbs. We'll see what happens here. This was actually an instance where Tesla had created kind of the first, a fluorescent light bulb. And we talked about
everybody that has sit in an office building. Every time you look up, think of Nikola Tesla.
I think that these were a little bit different. I believe that it was mercury in them instead of phosphorus, so a little bit more dangerous for sure. They didn't have the same power that the Edison bulbs had as far as to be able to last, but at the same time, they're like, if we just throw a fuck ton of these out there, it'll be fine for
it's
what
only
we
got to
need
last the time for the expo.
Well, when we talk about during the expo episode that this grand city of white had this beautiful white ivory coloration over everything because of those Tesla bulbs.
Yeah, there was no yellowing, no dulling it. And this was also, I think, the World's Fair that had that Ferris wheel that could hold like 2,000 people.
Samuel Ferris, yep. I want to say it was that.
Invention of the waffle cone or the hot dog?
Waffle cone, maybe. Was this the one with the cigarette smoking robot?
It might have been. I remember a lot of that happened in Chicago. That also might have been New York, or I think it might have been New York because we joked about how like there's nothing more in New York than a cigarette smoking robot.
Yeah, a cigarette smoking robot that makes fun of you. This certainly was where H.H. Holmes' horror death house was parked outside of the city where he killed and tortured a bunch of people.
Yeah.
So a lot of stuff going on at the Chicago World's Fair. But at the same time, the whole overarching thing is this is powered by Westinghouse. Tesla goes and spends a week there walking around and taking everything in. And then Tesla does what Tesla does so well. And he gives these wireless light performances in front of all of these people. I want to say that there were like 25 million people that had visited, but he was full every single time he did one of these.
With the Tesla coil and everything like that.
I believe this one he actually had two. He had one on each side of him. And he was just throwing electricity across, lighting up these light bulbs from across the stage. He was
just
really, he was a grand
Edison in
showman.
the stands to call him up as a volunteer. You, sir, come up here.
Just a ton of different stuff that he's pulling off. Oh, and even before that, 1891, he does become a naturalized citizen at the age of 35. So we're talking about a fairly young man still doing
35.
All this stuff. Yeah. He patents the Tesla coil that same year in 1891. He ends up serving as the VP for from 92 to 94. He's doing so much. But after this time at the World's Fair, his famous just goes off of the charts. Mm-hmm. This is when he's out having dinner with all of these people. He's just finally becoming well known for what he did. It's crazy how all this stuff runs together, because we're talking about these 1890s where all this is happening. Also in 1893, Edward Dean Adams, who was the head of the Niagara Falls, I don't even know where the shit this comes from, the Niagara Falls Cataract Construction Company. What are we throwing cataract in there for? Isn't that the shit that's on your eyes?
Mm-hmm. Might have a different meaning.
Yeah. Or maybe it was contract and
cataract might also be something about a river.
Is that a catamaran?
That's a boat, but I think cataract might also be something regarding river. I'm going to look it up. You continue.
Okay. They bring Nikola in to consult on transmitting power from the falls into Buffalo, New York. Tesla, of course, being partial to AC, is always going to say AC.
A cataract in a river is a large waterfall or series of rocky rapids also formed where hard rock obstacles. So Niagara Falls, big old fucking cataract.
Makes a ton of sense, actually. I'm glad you looked that up, because it got me when I was writing it down. So Tesla is pitching this Westinghouse AC generator to throw down there. The same one, I don't know if it was the exact same one, but it was the one that they'd used to power the stamp mill, basically.
They're basically
the same
like,
style.
Hey, we've already got proof of concept on this. I think the difference in this one is where it's going to be powered by more of the water wheel type situation. This plant ends up becoming the proto hydroelectric power,
where they're using water dropping down instead of having
the constant flow of the water to then move the turbines to then actually create and it's multiple, because this plant ends up, once it gets built and everything, I believe this plant ends up pretty much powering the city of Buffalo.
Yep.
Also powering, I don't know if it's a quarter or half of the city of New York. And for a very substantial amount of time, this power plant provides power to about a quarter of the United States.
It's magnificent. For all of the stuff that Tesla does, I hang this as his greatest accomplishment, because just the sheer mass of potential that he gets through building the Niagara Falls power plant, as far as to light up such an area, it's pretty unmatched, I think. Interestingly enough, GE was the one that built the AC distribution system for the city of Buffalo.
So they had to go to Westinghouse and Tesla and be like, hey, so we need this and this. And he's like, actually, you don't need that much cable. Trust me, that was your guys' problem when you were in this position. Oh, and I'm going to go ahead and let you guys know how to work my transformers. See, there's these things that allow us to convert the power down to a usable amount. Do you guys have that with Oh, you don't have that with DC. Okay, here's your wire.
Can you fix out your dumb DC brains to get this right? We have transformers. 1895. Where are we? Oh, okay. EDA, Edward Dean Adams, the guy that was the head of the Niagara Falls Construction Company, and an old partner, Alfred Brown, end up forming the Nikola Tesla Company in early 1895. So we've seen the Tesla Power and Light Company, the Tesla Electric Company. They're running out of names to figure out Tesla to put in a company. So, we're going full name. We're going Govey name here. Nikola Tesla Company.
You're so hot right now. We got to use the name.
March 13th, 1895. After this company is formed in early 1895, his lab on South 5th Avenue catches on fire. I believe this was the 2-level lab, and it was the bottom level that caught fire.
Okay, so...
Or 2-floor lab.
Yeah, and so this ties into a couple different things that are going to happen in the future and come back in a big way. So this lab, the lab itself, and Tesla had these are like private labs where Tesla does his stuff. So these aren't like Westinghouse labs or anything like that. He has a couple different labs in the city. This one's on the second floor of a building. Below it is a laundromat. Something happens why a janitor ends up starting a fire, something like that. And it ends up dropping the floor out and burning up everything and destroying everything in Tesla's lab. At this time, because he had studied and heard about those radio waves that we had talked about discovering when he went over to
Hertz
and everything, he had been doing work in conjunction with his wireless energy was to actually be able to send wireless radio waves over a great distance. This was something that he was currently working on and was in the process of testing it at a 50-mile range. The fire happens, destroys everything. He goes to Westinghouse at this point and he's like, okay, I had Westinghouse stuff in there because I had to power my lab and do everything. Mm-hmm. You guys still have some of my old stuff that I designed, and I designed all this stuff for you. I've also given you this fucking sweet break of this not charging you guys this $250. And after the construction of this goddamn dam, you realize how much money I would have made off of it. I'd like to go ahead and get some of that equipment back if you guys could go ahead and just hand that over. We'll call it, supporting each other because I'm still working on stuff for you guys. They're like, yeah, no, that's not going to work for us. We're going to need you to pay for the stuff that burned up that was ours, and then we'll charge you to go ahead and acquire new equipment. And Tesla's like, well, fuck. So it takes him and sets him back trying to release this radio, basically inventing radio by a year. During this year, another guy, and I can't remember his first name, Geo.
We'll talk about it. We got to get his confidence back up.
Okay.
I don't want to go back and pick the bone about the royalty, but at the same time, to say, I like Tesla. I like Tesla a lot. I think that he's an odd guy. He's a fun guy. I think that he invented far more than we ever give him credit for. At the same time, the nobility of hanging the I'm going to drop my $2.50 royalty fee. It sounds noble.
It was self-serving. I'm not debating that because that's what allowed him to continue the progression of using, and that was the key proponent of putting AC out there. So it was 100% self-serving.
There's also the thought of you can't collect a $200 or $2.50 royalty on a company that's going out of business.
Totally get your point.
And not to mention the stock options and the money that he got before is now null and void as well.
Correct. But what I'm saying, though, is at a certain point, once Westinghouse cranks it back up and is now the game in town, at some point you don't think they're like, hey, we know you actually kind of bailed us out a little bit there. How about we kick you back $1 for each of these? Lower than what you got, but it's something that would have helped him in the recovery. Yeah, I'm not saying this guy's good with this.
Stocks also help too.
I don't think this man is good with this money. I am not going to defend this guy's spending. I think, like you said, once he does something, it's a wash. He turns it over. You guys make money off that. I'm going to go start fucking around with something else and figuring other things out. I don't think he's great with managing his budget. I think he's just, I got an idea. I have the money to do it. I don't know if I'm going to have the money to do the next one, but that's a problem for another day. I just think it's very shitty that he goes to Westinghouse and he's like, hey, I'm working on this other thing. Yeah. We've had a good relationship and I've been pretty accommodating with you guys. And they still kind of show him the shaft.
True. Yeah, he needed something to get his groove back after the fire. 1898, Nikola gets his groove back through teleautomation.
This is fucking amazing.
This might be my favorite part of the whole story, and it's mostly because of the accusations that get lobbed at him, but it's also just the sheer misunderstanding. This is so technologically advanced that there was a group of people in this room that were so angry that they couldn't figure out what he was doing that they just started making up lies about what was happening. So 1898, this electrical exhibition, Tesla breaks out teleautomation and basically is routinely driving this radio-controlled boat. I want to say it was like 12 feet away from him. That was out in this little pool that they had filled up.
It looked like it was between 2 and 3 feet long, maybe a foot and a half wide, had some antennas sticking out of it.
It looks like an ugly submarine, kind of.
A submarine on the surface, yeah.
And as he's saying, go left. Or he calls out to the crowd, and he asks which direction it should travel.
And he's just got controls in front of him.
And he's running it. These people misunderstood what was going on so badly that they started accusing him of training a monkey and hiding it inside the boat to drive around the boat.
Or a little person.
Or a little person?
So he designed the first drone.
Yeah.
So then the reason...
In 1898.
The first drone. He's radio controlling this boat. And the way he explains why he did this is he's like, think of what we could do. Like, what if we could take soldiers off the battlefield? Ships are always trying to fight each other. What if you could have a radio-controlled torpedo to where you don't have to worry about a man being out there or anything like that? this could be, I'm not saying he's like, well, this could be a preventative against all war because everybody could use this and then no one would fight. He's just like, hey, military, you think you can find any uses for this thing that you can control at a distance and maybe use it to blow up your enemy? And they're like, that's a dude inside there, or a monkey at least. How are we supposed to train all these monkeys to operate torpedoes?
This is one of the things when he's talking about teleautomation. He also uses the word automaton a lot in his autobiography.
I fucking love the word automaton.
What does it mean?
It's a robot.
Okay.
Like automation.
Yeah, well, I kept thinking tauntaun and automaton.
I love the fact that I've talked to you enough about Star Wars that probably tauntaun is engraved in your brain.
It's there. But
great for cutting open and sleeping inside like a sleeping bag.
Yeah, it's nice and warm in there. He has these points in his autobiography where he basically calls his shot on a lot of things. And when he talks about teleautomation, he is basically describing planes that this can be used for that are pilotless planes that they can fly over and they can drop bombs and do all this kind of stuff. He's saying this in 1890. Now, this is where it gets interesting for me because I don't know when he started and finished the autobiography, because there are some parts where maybe he was a little bit more in on what the technology was going into it. Regardless, this one is so far before we ran into pilotless planes that this is just him calling his shot.
And what's crazy is he wasn't just like, oh, it can work on planes. He designed a plane, right?
Yeah.
And it was the plane that eventually the example that has been built in real life of the plane he built was I think it's the V-22 or something Osprey. It's the one plane that you see, it's been in like a bunch of Transformers movies, but it's the one that has the two props on the ends of the wings, and they can actually rotate up and it can take off vertically.
This is like the Da Vinci drawings of the flying machines, kind of.
Yes, exactly.
But he almost has this, and I used it with you today, he almost has this Ted Kaczynski-like ability to point to things in the future that are going to be a problem. And he goes off for probably about 5 minutes in his book about the potential weaponry for using the power inside of an atom. If he wrote this in 1934, before the Manhattan Project and everything kicks off with atomic bombs, he basically was just a soothsayer to see that kind of weaponry can be used to stop wars.
I mean, this is at a time when Einstein is probably well aware of Nikola Tesla. Robert Oppenheimer is well aware of Nikola Tesla. If you're a scientist and you're looking for any and every way that you have to develop this, you can leave no stone unturned. They've definitely looked into stuff.
There were parts where he kind of signals smartphones. That's not. Where he basically lays out like the thought of having a smartphone in your pocket 100 years before it's even ever conceived any other time. There's just so many different things that he comes up with. 1899, he sets up this experimental station in Colorado Springs in an effort to develop the transmission of electrical power. So he's back to working on the radio waves. He goes to Colorado Springs for the high altitude because he thinks that low pressure air is going to be less of an impediment to him sending these radio waves through.
The progression of his thought goes, I've created power. What's the limiting factor on the power generation that I've created? It's the wires. The wires are what determine where this can go and how far it can reach. What can I do to just simply eliminate the need for those wires? So and I don't know how he figures this out, but there's a reason why he goes to Colorado due to the altitude. There is a level of the atmosphere called the ionosphere. And the ionosphere either has a lot of those possible free electrons, or the resistance in the ionosphere makes it more conducive and more conductive to where if he can get the electricity up there, he believes that he can essentially blanket electricity out. And then in other locations, there would be these receiving stations, essentially, that would then be able to pull the electricity down just like it's being generated there on that spot and then distribute it out.
Crazy.
It's never been attempted is the crazy thing, so no one can say that it wouldn't work. It's a very common reason that it hasn't been done is it hasn't needed to be done.
Yeah.
Because if that occurred, people could build their own receivers to receive electricity. There would be no power companies, hence they wouldn't make any money.
It's it's logical but not ethical that they.
No, it's ethical. It's not conducive to a stockbroker or a stockholder's wallet.
In the looks of power companies shutting it down, that wouldn't be ethical on their end.
I think it's kind of the same principle as there has been engines designed to run off of water or do whatever. But if those were out there and available, gas wouldn't be a thing.
Yeah. So he's out in Colorado Springs. He's building these giant ass Tesla coils. He's able to talk the El Paso Electric Company into supplying AC free of charge for his laboratory there. In order to fund the experiments, he actually hits up somebody that we talked about all the way back in the Titanic episode, John Astor.
Ah, jackass.
He hits John Astor up for $100,000. He becomes the majority shareholder in the Nikola Tesla company. And basically, he thinks that he's going out there to try to work on these radio waves. Mm-hmm. Not knowing that he's going out there to work on the electric waves. And as soon as Astor hears about this, he's like, what the fuck, man? That's a lot of money that I just gave you for you to be out there testing and doing some stuff.
For you to be firing lightning bolts up into the sky.
That you weren't doing. Also, very interestingly enough, these Tesla coils that he was using out there were producing discharges that traveled up to 139 or 135 feet in length. That was how far these horizontal lightning bolts that he was shooting out were going. And at the same time, these giant Tesla coils that were sort of using as a radio antenna were picking up signals from an unknown area, which would only be possible if there was another radio signal out there to be sending it. Mm-hmm. At this point in time, Tesla believes that he was picking up signals from Mars.
I don't know what else you think of at that time. You're at a time when radio waves don't exist in a receivable form. He's receiving them, and he's like, if I haven't thought this shit up, and I'm not the one producing these, it's got to be space aliens.
Yeah. At the same time, I hope that he would be smart enough, and I think that he probably was, but the aliens were just a good story. Even though there's not another radio station that's producing these waves, there have to be similar things that occur naturally in nature that this would be picking up from. I don't know.
But Mars sounds way better.
Like I say, it does sound way, way better. At the same time, he's doing these interviews, and he ends up telling reporters that he planned to conduct a wireless telegraphy experiment. He wanted to transmit signals from Pikes Peak, which is in California, to Paris. Mm-hmm. So that's his ultimate goal, is to send these radio waves from Pikes Peak all the way over to Paris. I don't know if he liked the alliteration too. I love that he used it. March 1901, he gets J.P. Morgan to toss him $150,000, which is the equivalent to about $5.6 million today, for a 51% share of any generated wireless patents. I'm pretty sure that would have pissed Astor off. I believe at this point in time, Astor may have died on the Titanic. When was the Titanic?
1912.
Okay, so no, he was still alive at this point in time. But either way, Astor gave him money to try to figure out these radio things. Then J.P. Morgan gives him more money to generate patents for wireless transmissions. He builds Wardenclyffe Tower on Long Island. He was trying to beat another person to do this. Shockingly enough, another Italian. His name was I don't have marinara in my mouth.
Marconi.
Yeah, I don't have marinara in my mouth, so I can't pronounce it properly. So we're just going to call him Marconi, who was also developing his own radio-based transmission system. He doesn't get there in time. There's a multitude of factors, I'm sure, that get in his way. He states, and I don't have any reason to believe that he was lying because he was so ahead of his time beyond really anybody else, that Marconi was using some of his patented
devices,
technology to create this. Regardless, December 1st, 1901, Marconi transmits, and it's a huge transmission. I can't believe that they got this right. From England to Newfoundland, he transmits the letter S.
In Morse code. So when we say radio, this is just simply the waves getting there in a way that they can be confirmed as being sent from another location. So they send the letter S. So I don't know what S is in Morse code, but it's basically like, and they're like, success. I also think with Wardenclyffe, it was kind of like the same thing it was in Colorado, where he was like, no, I'm totally building this for radio waves, everything like that. Wardenclyffe is a giant fucking Tesla coil. It is a building with a giant water tower looking thing built right out of the back of it that is just a massive, I think it's 130 feet tall or something like that, Tesla coil. Maybe it could detect radio waves. I don't know. I'm not Nikola. I do know that this would definitely be the type of thing you would be building if you wanted to try to shoot energy into the sky.
Yeah, very true. We did miss his mother's death. It was back around the time that he was in France and in Europe over there. That sent him through a nervous breakdown. And again, I'm trying to clean up that part of the story. I can't believe that we forgot his mom dying, because his mom dying was a pretty big event. He goes through kind of the spiritualist stage where he feels like there's maybe something beyond the veil, as far as he said that he went to sleep that night, which he had been up for like 30 straight hours or something before he could actually get to his mother. But he had believed that he had fallen asleep that night, knowing that before she passed away, if she had passed away in his sleep, that he would know when he woke up. He said that he had this premonition of a group of children singing and these angels coming down. His mother's face was then on one of the angels and said goodbye to him, and that she loves him, that he will do great things. And when he woke up in the morning, he said that he had the feeling and known that his mother had passed away. So that was probably the last time that he'd had sort of one of these nervous breaks, until the project gets called off that he was running out in Wardenclyffe in 1905, 1906, another massive nervous breakdown. And along with these breakdowns, he starts to kind of, I don't know if this is in his head, he talks about how he could hear a fly land on a table that would send him into fits.
He started having like what they considered auditory hallucinations. Some examples are kind of like if you say, when you're like sitting in a room of people and they're all talking, but then you feel like you can zoom in on one person's conversation and only hear their voices from across the room. He said it was kind of like that. He could hear very specific sounds. Like if he was standing in his apartment, all he would currently hear was like the traffic or like a car's honking or something like that. But it would only be that.
And it would just wreck him. Mm-hmm. Mentally, he couldn't handle it. He eventually ends up losing Wardenclyffe after he had to take out a mortgage on the property to pay down a $20,000 debt that he had run up at the Waldorf Astoria Hotel.
Yeah, so this dude never really lived in apartments. I know we discussed it a while back, but for the longest time, this guy just lives in hotels.
Well, I kind of get it in a way, because it is nice to just have a place that you come home that's clean every single day and all that.
Oh, yeah.
I do wonder, though, how much his OCD affected, like, the way that things were being cleaned inside.
I think it helped because he never had to worry about daily messes.
It was just...
Maybe that was why he did it. He's like, I can't cook here. Maybe there's not a kitchen, so I don't have to worry about that. My food is just either brought and taken away, and then every day, everything is clean for me.
Well, he
found the hack for the OCD when it regards to that kind of stuff. This housework is stressing me out. How do I get rid of it? Well, I mean, it's not like you live in a hotel.
Yeah, don't have a house.
Yeah.
Don't have anywhere to call your own. By 1925, he was just pretty much bankrupt. And the hard times kind of continue. He's bouncing around from hotel to hotel. We're going to focus in on a story, I believe it was called the Clinton Hotel, maybe, that he was staying at in New York. He ended up running up another debt, and at this point in time, he didn't have the money to pay for it, but he could put down collateral. And this collateral was in the form of a small box that he gave to the manager, and he said, inside this box is a model of something that I call a death ray. He didn't call it a death ray. He called it a peace ray. But essentially it was this weapon of war that he had created to be able to transmit basically the first laser beam.
Yeah, so it could liquefy is not the right word, but it could dematerialize like tungsten or metal, and it would launch it in a huge spread, and it would basically be a deterrent against any airplanes being able to do anything. Like it would basically shoot down a ton of airplanes.
Not 100% sure why a hotel would take this as collateral.
They did.
But they did.
And they locked it in one of their vaults or one of their basements.
They ended up taking it that way. World War I, Nikola was involved as a witness during a lawsuit that was brought. This is interesting. I don't know if he was a witness for the defense or for Marconi.
It was definitely not for Marconi.
Well, he was testifying basically because Marconi was suing the German radio communications company that was being used during World War I. And this is kind of I like it because it's prior to the United States getting involved in World War I. They were in radio communication with Germany. Part of the reason why they had to be in radio communication with Germany is because of the underground cable in the Atlantic that connected both continents.
And then Britain was like, snip.
Britain went through and cut the cable. They're like, if you're not talking to us, you're definitely not going to talk to Germany. So we're going to cut that shit off immediately. Regardless, Marconi ends up suing the Germans. In 1915, Tesla then sues Marconi unsuccessfully because Marconi uses patents. He stepped on it. He infringed on the patents.
When Marconi was essentially lauded as the inventor of radio, Edison backed Marconi. He knew Tesla was working on something similar, but because Marconi technically got there first using using Tesla's technology, Edison backed him. It allowed Marconi to establish essentially like an established telegraph service. He had money. He had the backing of Edison. You're talking about Tesla being broke as shit. He's gone through bankruptcy, or he's bankrupt at this point. He has no way of waging a legal fight for this.
Yeah. Marconi, who's also been granted patents, and this is, again, partially the United States' fault, Marconi ends up suing them for patent infringement because while there had been patents that had been granted to Tesla and a few others, eventually in 1905, they granted Marconi a patent that he had reworked a couple times for basically a similar technology to what Tesla was using.
The way I understand it is basically in lieu of being sued by Marconi, the U.S. government went back on these patents that were essentially awarded to Tesla and was like, well, actually, we actually re-looked at them and Marconi really didn't violate this. So whatever argument you have against Marconi or whatever you're able to try to bring against him, it's not valid because his patents are actually the ones that are valid. They basically used it as a way to have Marconi drop the lawsuit against the government because they were in control of the patent, so they could just simply make it go away.
Well, he didn't even drop it. He just lost.
Well, yeah, but then he could always bring more against it. The reason he lost is because he couldn't afford to really go to war with them. He could pursue things if he had money and keep going after him as long as he needed to. Marconi simply was like, well, now regardless if Tesla gets money, he can't come after me.
Yeah, I don't know.
This ends up getting reversed too.
Well, I think it gets reversed partially because the United States wants to maybe gain the favor of having Tesla as the guy that
Marconi ends up dying, so they don't have to worry about him doing anything. And around the time he dies or after he dies, they were actually like, we've gone back, re-reviewed the re-reviews, and we found that actually all of this is Tesla. And now when you look at it, Tesla is now included as the inventor of radio.
Yeah, so maybe a little revisionist history there.
Back to proper revisionist history that you had to go back and...
Yeah, I still feel like Marconi should be credited.
I'm not saying he shouldn't, but I'm saying Marconi going off the back of Tesla and Tesla being in a position where it is, in my opinion, very likely that he would have gotten there first had it not been for the fire. I think that it would be Marconi not even in the conversation, so he's lucky to have joint ownership, I guess, of that.
Yeah. His nomadic lifestyle from hotel to hotel, just continued to pile these debts. I don't know how in the world these hotels weren't just like, no, dude, you owed the Waldorf Astoria $20,000. You gave the Clinton Hotel a death ray.
There's probably no tracking system, no credit, no nothing like that, where they're able to track and see how his payment history is.
But they're all fancy hotels in New York City.
No, I know there are. But what I'm saying is, this does not explain what the quality of the hotels are. I see this in a situation where he simply is going to lesser and lesser quality hotels.
It could be, but I think they were all fairly nice hotels because he got used to kind of this luxurious living. He also runs up a fair amount of pigeon debt. Now, we talked about this before the episode. He had developed a love affair of sorts with this beautiful white pigeon who I believe suffered from internal injuries. I'm not sure how that happened. I don't know if...
Don't.
Okay.
Okay, and it wasn't just like he met this white pigeon and it like, and all of a sudden like, Dreamweaver. No, it didn't happen. In his life, he had developed essentially a hobby of like feeding birds and caring for birds and stuff like that.
Baiting them.
He was not a super sociable guy. He was good. He was himself in social situations. People thought he was quirky, that he was funny without trying to be. But I think for him, being the type of person he was, never really being interested in any type of romantic relationship, he even comes back at a certain point later in life and says, I feel like I missed out on this. I feel like my obsessions may have caused me to miss out on certain aspects of life. I think he just became very emotionally invested in these birds. I don't think it was ever a romantic in a physical sense with these birds, strictly because, I mean, come on, dude. There is a large jump to bridge the gap between just liking birds, having a favorite, being broken up when that bird gets hurt, and fucking a pigeon.
I'll just leave you with the quote. You guys can do with what you may. I love that pigeon as a man loves a woman, and she loved me. As long as I had her, there was purpose to my life.
Yeah, he had lost everything. He is grasping on the only thing that is technically good and possibly consistent in his life. Again, to bridge that gap, buddy, between an inappropriate physical relationship with a bird. The man had no interest in women when he was, you think that it's just going to jump from, well, I guess I don't like women, so I birds.
I don't know. He's a quirky guy. Either way, he spends...
I am vehemently opposed to the Tesla slander to suggest that he participated in animal relations of a sexual variety of any kind.
He might not have been a slanderous pervert. Who's to say? I mean, I'm sure.
I am saying that.
You used to say. Regardless, he spent $2,000.
He did.
Building this pigeon some sort of apparatus to heal from a wing and a rib injury.
He also cared for other multiple pigeons. That was, buddy, that's all he... Listen,
so this dude is monogamous, is what you're saying.
No bones about it. This guy is a weird guy. It stands to reason, as obsessive as he was, pigeons were just simple. He said it was his only joy that he had at that time.
It's like Mike Tyson.
Yeah. And it's Tiger.
1931 birthday celebration. This is his post-pigeon care days. Gets a shout out from Albert Einstein. Pretty good. I'd like to hear Albert Einstein give me a shout out, so I'm sure that made him feel pretty good. He's also given the cover of Time magazine, which I don't know what Time magazine looked like in 1931. It blows me away that it was that big of a deal back then, but it kind of brings him back to the forefront, just being able to be on that, because I'm sure he took a hit after Marconi. I'm sure that his past winnings that happened in the 1890s with everything that he had accomplished had probably faded. I mean, we're talking 40 years.
There's been so much development at that point and other people coming into the spotlight. Touching on his relationship with Mark Twain. So he had kind of developed this friendship with him through just simply, hey, I read your books when I was, crazy thing. I was in the woods for a year and I actually read some of your books. Mark Twain thought he was a genius, came over to his lab a couple different times.
Are you about to tell the pants shitting story?
Yes.
Yes.
So there was this thing that, Mark Twain's going around his laboratory looking. He's like, what's this? What's this? What's this? And he's like, oh, I'm working on this. This is actually to help treat depression in like housewives. And he's like, what does it do? He's like, well, if it, you stand on it and through the vibrations, it actually will help kind of, cleanse the body and everything. He's like, so it makes you shit? And he's like, yeah, totally. He's like, you want to hop on it? Twain hops on it. He flicks the thing on. It rattles Twain's bowels. Twain has to clinch up, run to the bathroom. He ends up coming out. And he's like, maybe the world isn't ready for the pants shitter 5000, but what else have you got? He's shown him these lights that he's developing, things like that. Inadvertently, at the same time, overseas, I believe it was in Germany, someone was experimenting with X-rays. And they had developed a photograph showing the guy's wife's hand that showed the bones, her wedding ring, and everything like that, and had essentially developed the first X-ray. Very close in time, I believe, after this, without knowing what was happening over in Germany, he goes to take this photo, I think, of Twain. And what happened, the camera somehow refracted or did something with one of these cathode lights. I'm just spouting shit off here. But what ended up happening is the film that it developed ended up showing an X-ray image that was created showing like the internal housing of the camera, like the bolts or something like that. He then figures out a way to take another image of his foot in a boot that is very clear, sends it to the dude in Germany, and he's like, your work is really good and everything like that. Congratulations on figuring X-rays. How'd I do? The guy sends it back. He's like, that is a very clear image.
Yeah, so he was dabbling in X-rays.
He was also one of the first people that was like, hey, these things might actually be kind of dangerous.
Which is an odd thing for him to point out. A guy that created a death ray, allegedly, is worried about...
Peace ray,
excuse me. So a pretty good birthday. I would say that for your 75th birthday at that point in time, getting a shout out from Einstein, getting the cover of Time magazine, pretty sweet. 1932, birthday claims at 76, and this kind of became like a tradition every year on his birthday after they had this big party where he got the cover and everything. He kind of enjoys the limelight again. So every year on his birthday, he comes out and makes these claims. At 76, he claims that he invented a motor to run on cosmic rays. Clearly, there's no evidence of this. So
my brain automatically thinks solar panel that's able to go ahead and collect energy and then somehow do something, but I don't know the specifics enough about that.
There were no writings or anything like that. I believe that it was just him kind of with these ideas in his head that he was coming out with.
Well, it's like, you can think of something in theory, just like he was, well, if I can get electricity into the sky, then free power for everyone. In his head, he's thinking, everything else I visualize has worked or has come close to working. I just ran out of money. So I could definitely design this, cosmic ray device.
Well, yeah, then 1933, 77th birthday, he claims that he's on the verge of producing proof of a new form of energy that's cheap and it lasts for 500 years. This feels like maybe he's reaching a bit.
Slipping a bit.
Was he creating atomic energy? Is that what he was going for? And the half-life was 500 years? What do we...
Listen, a mind can only run at red line for so long. And you can only come up with so many good ideas before you start coming up with some more far-fetched ones.
Yeah, 1934, we get the official announcement of the Peace Ray. And along with 1934 being the official announcement of the Peace Ray, we come to find out that he was basically the idea behind the Peace Ray was that if a country got it, all of the other countries would understand that annihilation was just a flick of the switch away, so they wouldn't mess with them. And then eventually, because it was a Peace Ray, all nations would have one of these, so it would just be mutually assured destruction.
It was like a worldwide deterrent, like, you can't attack us, but if you have one, we can't attack you. But if you have, like, all the countries have one, no one can attack anyone. Hey, peace.
Turns out, Yugoslavia, which was his former country.
No one wanted the Peace Ray.
No. Well, like I say, Yugoslavia may have reached out. Yugoslavia is sitting behind the Iron Curtain, being a part of the Soviet Empire, they had some talks. And apparently it was enough that a man in charge of the FBI decided that we should probably keep an eye on this Tesla fella.
Who would that be?
Hoover.
J. Edgar Hoover was alive and in control of the FBI at the same time that Tesla was alive, and decided to keep tabs on Tesla because the caretaker, I believe, as Tesla got older, was his nephew, who happened to be an ambassador from Yugoslavia or something in that capacity, some type of representative. But because Yugoslavia was communist, they thought that, oh my God, Tesla's being looked after by a communist. Tesla might have a death ray. We got to step in on this.
So we're going to park some agents on the same floor as Tesla's hotel room just to keep an eye and to see what this guy's got going on.
No, nothing, boss. He just fucking hanging around with pigeons all day.
There was also an assistant that worked in his laboratory that Tesla talked with pretty regular that was an informant for the FBI, so they were keeping an eye on him. There's a lot of things that J. Edgar did wrong. I will say if a guy like Tesla announces a death ray, maybe keep an eye on him.
Yeah.
I don't hate that. That's not a bad idea.
I've seen this guy launch lightning into the sky.
Yeah, no shit.
Yeah.
I saw this guy's display back in 93. It was crazy, man. After this, 1940, he claims that the death ray has a range of 250 miles, like you had said earlier. Back to 1935, his 79th birthday, he claims that he invented a way to produce direct current by induction. A different way, basically, a more efficient way of doing what he was doing before.
He's like, oh, by the way, the DC thing? Yeah, I actually figured that out too, clowns.
He just does everything that he can. He flexes this idea for this mechanical oscillator. Now, there's a story that he's told, and I don't know where else it came from, but it's just too far beyond my scope of even beginning to understand this to be able to explain it. So he basically he alleges in 1898, he created this mechanical oscillator that was able to sit basically on like a kitchen table. This mechanical oscillator would bounce up and down. He said that it synced up just enough with the natural oscillation of the earth that it created an earthquake in lower Manhattan.
So he had it in a building, and basically, like if you've ever had an oscillating tool, like a DeWalt oscillating tool or anything like that, basically it's just something that moves back and forth extremely quick. And with his, as it moved back and forth, the vibrations that the oscillating tool created matched the pitch of the vibrations necessary to shake the building. So, listen, this is just, I'm going off of this information, man. You can look at me.
No, you're giving the right thing, but you're with me on this, right? This just didn't happen.
Here's the thing.
This guy didn't create an earthquake machine.
There's a difference between you've been in your house, someone's been running the vacuum, you can feel the vibrations through the floor in the other room. There's a big difference between turning that thing on and having it possibly shake the room you're in, the floor you're in, causing vibrations, and then just assuming because it's shaking your floor, it's shaking the whole building. When he powered this thing on, he said he couldn't get it off and he had to smash it with a hammer. I don't see that being a situation where he powers the thing on, he feels everything start to shake. He goes out and looks out the window. He's shaking with the building. So if he's looking out, it looks like everything is shaking. He's not going to run out to the street or run through every floor of the building and be like, is it shaking up here? Is it shaking down there? If he feels it shaking and they're like, hey, turn it off to see if it's shaking everything, and he's like, I can't get the fucking thing off. He smashes with a hammer. You don't know for certain. I do believe it probably shook the room that he was in and maybe the floor that he was in the apartment building. But I don't see it being an earthquake device. He had also stated that, and again, we're getting up to him in age. Didn't he explain he had a pocket-sized oscillator that he believed he could vibrate at the same frequency as the Empire State Building?
Yep.
Or something like that to be able to bring down the Empire State Building?
Yeah, I mean, he said that this earthquake in 1898, the police were called to figure out the disturbance. When he was asked about it, he just said it was an earthquake.
Buddy, he's getting up there in age. And this is not to detract from all this other stuff we've talked about.
I'm just saying, he might be a little cuckoo at this point.
This is the mind of somebody that anything they've thought up in their head, I don't really think they've thought it was impossible. I think he's in the mindset that if I can think it up, it can be built. I just have to try it out a couple different times.
Well, and I think it's also the desire to keep his name in the news a little bit by bringing these stories up.
Oh, yeah.
There's definitely a little reach. He's punching a lot of stuff up for this.
I agree.
1937, he has an event in the grand ballroom of the Hotel New Yorker. Tesla receives the Order of the White Lion from a Czechoslovak ambassador and a medal from the Yugoslav ambassador. I bet you that didn't do a whole lot of good with J. Edgar's.
Probably not.
With his research. He was questioned concerning the death ray. Tesla stated, it's not an experiment. I have built and demonstrated and used it. Only a little time will pass before I can give it to the world. So, if he's built, demonstrated, and used a death ray, he's killed.
It's in the basement of the Waldorf Astoria or the Clinton or whatever it is.
He's killed with the death ray.
He's actually like, I've tested it. Well, what happened? Well, I actually created a radio-controlled plane that I flew up and shot it with the death ray, and then it,
1934, we did miss out on this one. Westinghouse, in altruistic...
The board of directors of Westinghouse, not George.
Yeah. The company ends up rehiring him as a consultant for $125 a month, and they did pay his rent. This was pretty clearly our main inventor that kind of gave us what we have today in the electrical field is out there pulling some shit.
This is where your company has developed a strong PR team.
Yes, exactly.
And they're looking at a situation where they're like, he's getting kind of old. He's still relevant, so people are going to know when he dies.
He keeps throwing these birthday parties on TV.
Yeah. So we're in a position where we can either allow the guy that pretty much helped pioneer this company and brought it to where it is. We can be known after he dies. Who knows what he's going to write in his autobiography about us? So we can either sit here and wait till that comes out after he dies and look like the clowns that scorned and spurned Tesla, take the hit on that, or we can spend chump change, support him for the rest of his life, and maybe buy back some of that good karma.
We're not going to reinstate his royalty now that we're making money.
Oh, God, no.
We'll keep him going.
He's in a very cost-effective... He's at a Holiday Inn right now, very cost-effective, and honestly, he's not really inventing a lot of stuff at this point. A lot of it's just theory, so we probably won't have to pay a lot for his research and development budget.
You know what? He's too old for that much money. Technically, we shouldn't even give him that much money because he might try to build a death ray.
I was going to say, we give him too much money, the death ray is getting built. And who's he going to aim that thing at?
So 1937, besides getting those awards from the Soviet Union, essentially, he's 81 years old. 37 continues to get worse because right after midnight one night, he ends up, I believe he's walking home from his laboratory or to his laboratory. I don't remember which one it was. He ends up getting hit by a taxi.
Yeah.
And because of stupidity, hubris, maybe his just disbelief that doctors could fix things, even though he sent the x-rays that he took to his foot.
I don't think he saw that in a doctor in a physician capacity in any way, shape, or form. It was just like, hey, look at my bones.
Hey, he never goes to the doctor after this happens.
I think it was more so like, hey, look, I can do it too over here.
Yeah, that was probably what that was.
It was a little bit of flex.
He just didn't have any belief in doctors, so he ends up never going to the doctor. They said, just judging by visually his injuries, he had some broken ribs. There were some other things that were wrong
fucked up his
with him.
spine a little bit too, I think. You're hit by a fucking taxi. And you're 81.
This surprises me that an 81-year-old man that gets hit by a taxi in 1937 lives to see 1943.
Yeah.
January 7th, 1943, his body is found by a maid in his hotel room. They believe that it was coronary thrombosis. 2 days later, the FBI shows up to seize Tesla's possessions from his hotel room.
Surprise, surprise.
And that nephew, I believe it was that you were talking about, that was the diplomat, is the main beneficiary of all of Tesla's shit. Now, there's some talk of trunks that were seized by the FBI that may have had the information that Tesla had that he was working on these things that were seized. I believe the number was 83.
Quick, look for the crate that says death ray.
The trunks that were returned to his nephew were less than 83. He's like, whoa, where are these other trunks that you guys took? And the FBI's like, well, we went through and just basically shoved everything in as few trunks as possible.
Yeah, you're down to 44. Some of these are half empty. I don't know what to tell you, man.
Yeah. This is where I kind of get angry about conspiracy theories, because Tesla's a beautiful blueprint to start lobbing conspiracy theories with. Free energy, this asshole named David Icke that was kind of the man that started to spin the idea of the lizard or Illuminati, the reptilian people that are running the world. Icke latches on to this whole idea that Tesla had created free energy and that he hadn't been able to release it yet. And then the government went in and they seized these files and they stole the ideas and the patents that he was working on.
It's a conspiracy born out of something Tesla was actively pursuing.
Yeah. There's also the conspiracy that he did have things like death rays or some of the different oscillators, things that he was working on.
If you had to, at this point in time in the world, and someone was like, there is a death ray that's been invented. Who invented it? Top 3 is going to be, Tesla's name's going to be in there. Yeah. So if it had existed, he is definitely one of the prime suspects for inventing one.
If the FBI seized everything, if they found blueprints for the death ray, if they were able to reverse engineer, whatever they had to do to get this death ray, you're telling me that the United States would have lost as many wars since then as we have?
No, I don't think, here's the deal. I don't think there was a death ray.
No.
But what I do think is there were things in there, could have been crackpot ideas, but there's also not been a lot of information about Tesla released from the FBI for any of these files. So if it was even remotely like potentially dangerous or anything like that, they're just not going to release it. We've also done an episode on Hoover, and we know Hoover destroyed a shit ton of stuff when he left. He was pretty indiscriminate when he did that. The likelihood of them having information, especially after monitoring Tesla for a decent amount of time, they probably had stuff. We know that he was under observation, at least at the bare minimum. I don't think it was conspiratorial as in saying they're hiding a death ray, because that is something that we definitely would have developed and would have used immediately.
That's what I mean. But any weapon of war that he could have come up with, and I think you nailed it when you said that they could have been crackpot ideas. I think the notes that he had at that time in his life were definitely probably just the ramblings of an old genius trying to figure these things out.
Yeah, but I think at the same time, if someone's trying to look those things over and no one is smart as Tesla or can understand what he's writing down, and they're looking at it and they hand it to someone and they're like, what do you make of this? And they're like, from what I know, I don't understand some of this, so I can't tell you 100% that this wouldn't work. And they're like, we're not taking the chance. Put it in the box.
Yeah, and the technology, as you were talking about earlier, the technology hasn't caught up to his ideas yet, or they didn't work. They weren't feasible.
And it was unimportant to release.
Yeah.
There was no point to it.
So did the FBI take some of Tesla's files? I have no doubt that they did. There's zero doubt in my mind that the FBI sees shit that we never saw.
What was in those files is anybody's guess, and that's where the conspiracy gets born, is because we don't know what's in there, so it's going to let your imagination run wild based upon all the other stuff he did.
Yeah. Well, at the same time, knowing that there wasn't a Teslean jump in technologies that he could have been working on to kind of show that maybe they didn't. January 10th, he ends up being eulogized by the mayor of New York City, Fiorio LaGuardia, the man that the airport is named after, at the Cathedral of St. John of the Divine. Pretty big funeral. I believe they said 2,000 people attended. I don't know if that's enough considering the contributions that Tesla had given, but again, we're removed from those golden years of the 1890s and the invention of the AC motor, that now I think at that point in time, electricity was probably more taken for granted.
Yeah.
Shockingly enough, that's not a long period of time, but it's a generation at least of not having to live without electricity or DC.
And if we think about it too, you're like, well, based on what we've discussed here, there haven't been a ton of advancements in electricity. It's just been more widespread. And that's because there hasn't been a need to really have any more advancements. It serves its purpose now. People are able to charge for it. They have a monopoly in one way, shape, or form on power. People, it's very hard pressed for people to produce their own. They're relying on something else.
They throw us a bone and talk about increasing efficiency, but there's no giant leaps. There's no
it's
wireless.
Enough to, it's like you said, it's enough to throw us a bone to think there's some advancement, but there's really not.
Yeah, I can set my phone on a wireless charger now and charge my phone. I can't set my phone down across the room and charge it.
Yes, and my phone is still running off power because the charger is plugged into the wall. It's not like it's just absorbing it out of the air.
Crazy enough, I didn't realize this. The port for your phone charger that you plug into the wall,
Yeah.
converts the AC into DC
why
to
there's a
charge
block.
your phone.
Yeah,
I had
in
no
old
idea
school-
what that was.
Remember old school laptops?
Yeah.
And or even old school, like an Xbox that had the block in between the power cords? It was a converter.
I had no idea.
Neither did I. I didn't know what it was, but I knew I had to have it to play.
Yeah, you knew that it was important.
His ashes are in, I believe, Croatia at a museum for Tesla.
The Tesla
And they're
Museum.
contained within a gold sphere.
I thought it was in the coil. Is it a sphere?
It's a sphere. It's his favorite shape. It was a sphere because that's what would be, conducting with Tesla coil and everything like that. We talked about a lot of his top inventions. We talked about the Tesla coil, the Tesla turbine. The turbine was a little bit different than actually for like generating power in the sense of being like with magnets and everything. It was kind of an advanced water wheel of sorts that could actually spin and generate power more efficiently.
Wasn't it bladeless?
It was bladeless, and I don't understand the concept because water would pass over the thinner side of a plate. It wasn't like paddles or anything like that, but it could somehow work because he created a container that the plate spun in that created enough force to spin the wheel.
I always think of those Dyson fans.
Kind of.
Bladeless fans.
Yeah.
I wonder if Dyson got a hold of that.
Dude, there are so many things. We can't even... It'd take us another 2 or 3 hours to explain everything that he's responsible for.
He had hundreds of patents, didn't he?
300.
300.
He filed for 700, and he had 300 of them. I'm going to go ahead and give him props for the radio. The magnifying transmitter, which was something that I believe increased the range of the Tesla coil or did something with that. The induction motor that we spoke of at length. Alternating current advancement, which is his coup de grace.
Transformers.
Yep. Hydroelectric power at Niagara completely proved that was a reliable source of power. There's hydroelectric plants all over the world that draw from this. Yeah.
Everywhere.
Every damn dam. The shadow graph, which he called the shadow graph. It's actually the X-ray. Remote control boat that we talked about, which is probably my favorite.
So
We
funny.
forgot to mention neon lights, buddy. Remember when he was at the World's Fair, he created that entire backdrop of like neon lights
Yeah.
and had them shaped into different
That's
things
right.
and everything like that. So if you're at
It was
a bar,
the welcome note, wasn't it?
yeah, so you're at the bar, you see the Bud Light sign or you see whatever it is, neon lights, Tesla. Think of him. Raise one to Tesla.
Again, not solo inventions, things that were built upon to create them.
Correct.
So he laid the baseline. He laid the foundation for a lot of this
Yes.
stuff.
So anytime you're using power, Tesla. Listening to this podcast, Tesla. Driving in cars with an alternator, Tesla. I mean, this guy, you touch things multiple times a day that this guy pioneered and that we wouldn't have if it weren't for his mind. So it's weird to think that now it's more synonymous with an electric car, which I get it's an electric car and everything like that, but it's just so much bigger than that. The reason that you can charge that electric car is because of him.
I'm also pretty pumped. He gave me some cover this week because the next time that I have to replace an outlet or something like that and I shock myself, it's not my fault. It's Tesla's fault.
Yeah.
it's not my fault for not turning off the breaker before I do it. It's Tesla's fault because he was so goddamn efficient.
Nicholas, damn you! But yeah, an insanely fascinating figure that has impacted our world. We haven't discussed a person that has had a greater impact on our world, I think, up to this point than Nikola Tesla.
I'm still going to hold up Newton, but
impacting our world in the sense of what you experience on a daily basis.
Yeah, unfortunately, I have to experience gravity on a daily basis.
Yeah, but that already existed, buddy. Just the concept of it and the calculations for it were Newton. He explained how it works.
Yeah. I also, I think, give Newton a little bit more credit because he had 200 years of advancement for Nikola to figure some of this shit out.
Okay, we'll just agree to disagree.
Yeah, I don't know why. Newton, I just like Newton a lot.
That's okay. That's okay.
Even then, agree on everything. You know what? Not even Newton. I'm going Da Vinci still.
Okay.
I think Da Vinci
is fun as fuck.
Yeah.
I think Da Vinci's mind is just crazy because he's all over the board. I think Da Vinci was less obsessive and more creative, maybe, in a sense of just multiple disciplines, whereas Tesla kind of had his lane, but he was just the GOAT.
There was a point where I was listening to something and it was describing like how his mind worked as far as just being able to see things, and he wasn't an instructions guy. He wasn't anything like that. It's like, he's nuts. That's a really weird way to think about it. And then about 2 seconds later, I was thinking about how I'm just allergic to using a recipe when I cook. And like, I'm trying to figure out flavors in my head. And I was like, oh, you can't call him stupid because you kind of do it too sometimes. Maybe we look at that as genius instead.
Yeah. It's your own little version of Tesling.
If I never write anything down, it's more Teslian than expected.
You got anything else?
No, fun time.
All right. Well, guys, thank you for joining us on this dive into the mind, the inventions, the innovations of Nikola Tesla. We hope you got a lot out of it. We hope you enjoyed it. See you next week, I guess.
He didn't bang the pigeon. Peace.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us for another episode. If you like what you heard, hit that subscribe and like button. Follow us. If you didn't like what you heard, still hit that anyway, because we'll probably cover something in the future that you do like. Please follow us on our social media. Adam, hit him with it.
Our Instagram is historically high pod, historically high pod, and we are on Twitter at historically high. That's historically HI.
All right. And if you guys want to send in any feedback, suggestions, hit us up on those two, or you can even do it on Gmail. It's historicallyhighpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks again.
Peace.